Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Pop Culture Council, a podcast where we talk about books, games, TV shows, movies, theatre, and everything in between. I'm your host Tyler, and I'm joined with my co-hosts.
I'm Jabu.
I'm Jordan.
Oh, nice! That was nice, nice and smooth and fluid. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Excited for today's episode.
I think this is going to be a fun episode. Feeling good, ready to come out and try and get everyone on side as to why I'm correct.
It's not always a competition.
No, it is. It is. Live.
Sounds like a normal episode, to be honest.
Yeah, let's go then. Let's rock it out.
Gosh.
We're going to fight off camera. Off podcast.
We can get straight into it, I guess. So, I guess the premise of the episode is we're going to talk through the different Harry Potter movies. We've all gone away on our own and ranked the movies from best, ranked number 1, to worst, ranked number 8 out of the 8 films in the franchise. My ranking and Jordan's ranking and Jabu's ranking were then brought together, and we kind of did a point system. So the first ranking in each person's list was scored 8 points, the second one was scored 7 points, etc., etc. And then all of the rankings were added up to form a kind of tier list for the Harry Potter movies. Jordan and Jabu don't know the rankings yet. I added them up separately. And we're going to kind of talk about what came out of the bottom, what came out of the top, and then each of our individual rankings for those as well. So,
okay.
We're not including magical beasts and where to find them.
Oh yeah, the Fantastic Beasts and
Fantastic Beasts, magical beasts.
Magical beasts.
Sorry guys, I'm tired.
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them franchise is not being included, so it's just the core 8 Harry Potter movies. And I guess with the new reboot that's coming out from HBO Max soon,
oh god,
we thought we'd kind of revisit the original movies. So
That sounds good.
Yeah, how's everyone feeling about the reboot?
I think it's a bold choice. For those who don't know, the HBO are doing a reboot of the original Harry Potter franchise. So they're gonna do a series of the books, basically. And the whole point is that it's gonna be more book accurate than the movies are. They're gonna do one season for the Philosopher's Stone, the first book, one season for each book, basically, with new cast, potentially new sets. I don't know why they chose to do this, but after there's so many different avenues for them to explore within the Potterverse, they chose to remake an existing masterpiece. So I don't know. It's not for me personally.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think the idea is to kind of bring people to the franchise and bring new people, a new generation to the franchise. But I think the movies and the books in their own right are timeless in their own way. And yeah, they could have benefited from exploring other areas within, like do the Marauders and talk about James, Sirius, and Severus and Remus and Lily and their time at school, rather than rehashing a story that's been told time and again in a number of different formats already.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's a big benefit, which we're seeing even, say, with Star Wars, where you're making the world, just expanding it and detailing it more. I think when you see it even with like in Marvel or just like lots of different franchises where they'll make things, and I think there's a big benefit for that. And I think, I don't think we needed this. I don't think we need this.
Yeah, I think it can go the other way, where you're putting out too much content too quickly, and then it can compromise the quality of the content because you're just trying to expand the world as much as you can.
Marvel.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Phase 4 of Marvel's the prime example there, probably. But if you do it in a way which it makes sense to tell this story, it's expanding the world, especially when you have such a rich, vast kind of area of, there's so much lore within Harry Potter that you could explore that are on like the resources like Pottermore or whatever, that you can be brought to the big screen or even the the small screen on a streaming platform.
I'm pretty confident that if we were to if they were to have done like a huge survey of, say, everyone who liked Harry Potter, what people want is the Marauders more than seeing Harry Potter. We don't need to see that again.
What's the Marauders?
So Harry Potter's father and his friends during their time at Hogwarts.
Okay. The creators of the Marauders map.
Exactly. And seeing their time at Hogwarts through, you don't have to join in their first year, but it could be starting in their first year over 7 or over 5 or 6, whatever it is, would be far more beneficial.
I agree.
Because Daniel Radcliffe is Harry Potter. That's just how it is.
This is another point I was going to make, is now this introduces so much inconsistency to the canon. Because what do we now consider to be the Harry Potter canon? We have a book canon, we have a movie canon. Now, do we need a series canon?
That's true.
And also, it's I think it's unfair to. It's going to be a kid, right? They're going to be under so much pressure. They're going to. You know, you saw it with Jake Lloyd in the Star Wars universe playing young Anakin Skywalker in Episode 1.
Huge boots to fill.
Huge boots to fill.
You can't fill.
It's impossible. And what, you're going to recast Alan Rickman?
You just can't. It's not
unless you're going to resurrect Alan Rickman and all of that.
I read somewhere, I think, that they were going to put in Adam Driver as Snape. I don't know if that's just rumor or confirmed or whatever.
So we're going to...
American.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Interesting.
That's true.
That was one of the things, I think, which made the film so amazing. The Harry Potter film so amazing because, well, trivia, I don't know if it's a fun fact or whatever, but I know that they were very hard on the fact that only English, Irish and Scottish actors in the original movies, which I think
that gives it that authentic feel.
Of like when you're reading the books, it felt like this is like almost like school, I'm used to like at school. So
definitely, that makes sense.
I think that's also what made people who are not in the UK enjoy it as much, because it feels like it's an insight into a world that they're not really used to. like
a lot of Americans I've met have been like, "Oh my god, like is your school like Hogwarts?"
Yeah, exactly.
I actually wear robes.
I were educated in the castle,
in the Highlands. But yeah, I think that's kind of like, oh, that's awful. I'm sorry. Yeah. The more I think about it,
you would imagine that the people making these decisions know what they're doing, so maybe they have some knowledge that we don't.
And they must have done research and focus groups and stuff to come up with the idea to redo this. There must be a reason, because the people that are up there know that people have been fan casting Marauders for ages.
Do you know what though? I think the more like I'm just seeing some of the stuff Hollywood and these big companies put out, the more I'm like, we assume they know. Maybe that's what we would do if we were in that position, but they might just see it as like another, like sometimes I'm scared that they might just see it as like another standalone film. Oh, they don't hold it maybe in the maybe they do, and they might, but
I think
sometimes they might just hold it as like, oh, this is just something I'm doing.
They don't take it as seriously as some of the fans might want them to.
Yeah, I think so. That's why they might cast Americans, or they might, because it's like
okay,
that maybe, I don't know.
I think this also ties into kind of what Tyler was saying about mass appeal. Like, as Harry Potter fans, we obviously hold the movies to a certain level, whereas for the big cheeses at Warner Brothers, they might be thinking, right, we need to find a way to bring more people into this universe. Series are a huge thing right now,
and because we're tying up the Fantastic Beasts franchise, we need something to continue the Wizarding World, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll wait and see.
We've had, Jabu and myself have had conversations before where we're like, not they should redo the Harry Potter movies as a series, but imagine in their original state, if they were a series, what would it have been like? It would have been interesting. They would have been able to spend more time with characters. So I don't know, maybe
it'd be interesting to see what they come up with.
It's going to be hard to not compare.
Yeah,
I think what we've
inevitable.
We've seen it
nearly
before.
Impossible.
With Warner Brothers, their extended universes don't quite match up to what Disney's been able to do.
No, I don't know. If you think about Game of Thrones, for example,
that's not an extended universe though. That's just one linear narrative.
The DC extended universe with the films, the animation DC.
Okay,
that I can testify that was really good.
I think is your primary thing about DC's extended universe. Yeah. I think that there was a number of reasons. It wasn't just because the studio aren't good at producing that. There's so many things that go into it, you know, the sets, the cast, the crew of each individual project as well, and that kind of overall vision. They need to find their vision early on. I think it's for the DC live action universe, they just had the wrong vision from the start, so that's why it's kind of overall seemed like an overall kind of it's not as, and it was often being compared to the MCU at the time, which at the time was just absolute golden. So yeah, okay. I think
so. You think that they went off, they started with the kind of vision of doing one standalone movies and then tried to kind of combine them a bit too late, rather than starting with the whole extended universe vision. Okay,
so yeah, I think the DC universe is now in new hands, new leadership, and I think the direction they're going to go is going to be much more interesting. I think they're going to lean more into the darker side of the DC universe, which there's so much source material and stuff to draw from the comics that it can certainly be redeemed. And I think it's about the leadership and the vision for the overarching narrative.
Okay,
I hear that. I do hear that. Tyler's coming for the trying to redeem them.
Oh,
I get it. I get it. I agree.
There's
I do
potential.
agree.
So
It's a more fair. It's a more balanced. What you were saying. I agree.
anyway, let's get into this Harry Potter tier list. So, just as a recap, we've ranked all the movies. We're gonna and then we've kind of averaged them out into an overall master tier list. We're gonna go from the worst movie in our collective opinion to the best movie in our collective opinion, and kind of talk about where we rank them as individuals as well. So bottom of the list, which might come as a surprise to some listeners, but I don't think it is a surprise to any of us, is Harry Potter 8, Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Thank
The
you.
grand finale of the franchise. Jabu and myself and Jordan all ranked it as the bottom on our list. So, yeah.
I think with such a massive franchise, the ending has to be on point.
Yeah.
Like, it can't make any mistakes.
So in terms of where we're at in the franchise now, Dobby's just kind of been buried towards the end of the first part of number 7, if you like, and things are getting serious. Things are getting real. Yeah, lots goes on. It's like the culmination of the whole thing. The Battle of Hogwarts happens. Harry's kind of like on the run. They're in hiding. Yeah, what else happens in number 7 in the final movie?
Obviously, it's mainly the Battle of Hogwarts that happens. Yeah, I think it's mainly the Battle of Hogwarts. They're protecting the castle.
There's a few more Horcruxes to find, I think, at the start.
Yeah, they axe off a couple Horcruxes in that film.
Is the Gringotts dragon? Is that in this movie? I think it is.
That's the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, right at the start of the movie.
That's the beginning of the movie.
So that all happens. They manage to retrieve the Hufflepuff cup.
The cup, yeah.
Cup.
And then they go and find the diadem, which they know is in Hogwarts. They have the room of requirement chase scene on the brooms
with
the fiend fire.
Fiend fire.
Harry views Snape's memories in the pensive. Snape obviously dies.
Oh,
Neville kills
Nagini,
which is another Horcrux down.
Which is another Horcrux, and that was the last one to be killed.
That was the last one, but Ron and Hermione also go.
Oh yeah, I forget they destroyed the cup. Yes,
using a basilisk fang. Ron manages to replicate some parcel tongue that he heard Harry use.
Go on, Jordan. Give us a rendition.
No, I can't.
Tell her. Heshasa, man.
Heshasa.
He Heshasas his way into the Chamber of Secrets.
Heshasas his way all the way
down
in.
the corridor.
And then obviously Hermione and Ron finally put to bed all the tension that they've been feeling and end up kissing.
Very intense.
You have the awkward little epilogue at the end where everyone's kind of stuck fake hair onto the male's faces and kind of put all the female characters in mum clothing.
Yeah. it read well in the book. I don't know if I don't know how people feel about it in the film. I mean, but in the book it read quite well.
It's okay. It's good. Molly, there's some good moments, you know. It's the bottom of our list, but I think it's worth mentioning that we love all of these movies, and there's
wow.
Jabu doesn't like some of the later ones, but we love the kind of movie series as a franchise. So just because at the bottom of the list, it doesn't mean we hate it or anything. It just happens to be the lowest ranked.
Why is it on everyone's bottom?
Yeah, that's the kind of following.
I think it kind of because it's the last movie in such a well-renowned franchise. There's a lot of pressure on ending it well, and I think when the expectations are so high, it's very difficult to meet those, and so a lot of people may have come away from it disappointed. Maybe not even with the movie, but with the fact that there aren't going to be any more movies, and so that tinges people's perspective on the movie.
Interesting. Jabu, does yours stem more from your love of the number 7 as a book and how there's like the differences for the movie adaptation?
Yeah, I think the book did it really, really well. I remember finishing the 6th book and then being like, wait, what's next? And then like, obviously I don't know off the top of my head how long the wait between the 6th book and the 7th book was, but as a child it felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
So when it finally did come out, like, there's so much I felt like there's so much expectation for her to deliver like a really good film, really good book, and I think she delivered with flying colours.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like it's not hard to then. It is, in a way, it is hard because you're adapting a book into a film, but they've done it before. they've done it with previous ones. I feel like this one, they just went so far off some of the source material.
Yeah.
Well, it's just little things which kind of annoyed me. That kind of irked me. Like,
I know what you're going to say.
like Harry and Voldemort's fight is like, in the book, if my knowledge serves me correctly, they're fighting like in the main hall and like everyone's watching them.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, it's like they tried to make it a bit more dramatic, and like Voldemort was hitting Harry, like he like physically hit him, which I think was just a bit like, it's just a bit pointless. Like, you're trying to make it this thing, but some of their duel was cool, like when they were fighting on the stairs and Voldemort was then apparating up and down the stairs. That was quite cool, but I just think they tried to do a lot, and then when they were flying together and the faces were it's just you're doing too much,
Like symbolism and all of this kind of
just
thing.
allow it, man.
I can understand why they go for that though, and they're like, I think the final battle carries a bit more weighting if it's you know when they're in the courtyard and the wands match streams or whatever. I get it. Visually, it is climactic, whereas I guess if it would seem a bit like everyone's just sitting there watching them in the hall. It's like an assembly or something.
Nah, it reads a bit different.
I get
I get what you're saying. That's fair. I mean, it is Hollywood ultimately, isn't it? Is it Hollywood?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's Hollywood. But yeah, so I think that, I don't know. I think it's at the bottom of our list it's at the bottom of all our lists for a reason. A fun fact though, which I think is quite interesting, even though it's at the bottom of all our lists in terms of what we're enjoying, it was obviously it set crazy records, that film.
Yeah.
It set some crazy records in regards to like I think it was the first $1 billion Potter film that came out at the box office, and it was the highest grossing film of the series and the 13th highest grossing movie of all time as of December 21.
Wow.
To have only 12 films make more money than you, that's a testament. But I would argue though, it's a testament to everything that's come before.
I agree.
As opposed to this film is incredible. I think it's more just anything they put out would have done that.
I think the after all of those movies and that, it's basically like an era of Harry Potter is coming to an end. It's an event, it's like the end.
This is the finale.
Yeah.
100%.
That makes sense.
Yeah, any film, like, it could have been so much worse or so much better. It probably would have done exactly the same. Everyone was going to watch it.
It's a culmination of the franchise.
Exactly. Precisely.
Yeah, that's. I guess that's number 8. Does anyone else have anything they want to talk about for that one?
No, I think.
Don't think so.
All right, moving on up.
Let's go.
Moving on up the list to the 7th ranked movie. What do you guys think set us the 7th on the list?
I know that you guys aren't the biggest fans of the later movies, so I'm going to go with that number 6 or 5.
Okay.
I'm going to hope it's part 1.
Ooh, Deathly Hallows Part 1.
That's what I hope is.
One of you is correct.
What did you just say, Jordan?
5 or 6.
5 or 6. Part 1. Okay.
But I gave 2 answers.
You gave 2. So it's 3 is potential. 3.
One of you is correct.
I'm trying to remember where I put 5 and 6 on my list.
I think it's part 1.
I think it's going to be part 1 because it's pretty low on my list.
You're right. It's part 1.
Yeah.
So the Deathly Hallows duology, if you like, is 8th and 7th. The culmination of the franchise is actually the bottom ranked if you average out all of our rankings. So I put it 6th out of 8th on my list. Oh. Jordan actually put it a bit higher on 4th. And for Jabu, it was 7th.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of an interesting spread. Do you wanna talk about like what kind of happens in the movie? I guess.
Yeah. No. So we kind of start with Voldemort. His powers growing.
Would you say he's at the height of his power?
Probably the height of his power, I'd say. From if like the last time he was at this height was probably just before he got killed. All those like before the Harry Potter series started. So yeah, he's really at the height. He's got real control over the Ministry. He's not fully in control, but he's got like little people in there. And Rufus, who is like the Minister of Magic since Fudge had stepped down, is like kind of the only kind of gateway between Voldemort and completely controlling the Ministry. And then obviously we have the main 3. They've all kind of agreed that they're going to go and hunt Horcruxes. And at the end of the 6th one, they said like, "Oh, we're gonna be with you, Harry." And
I really like the way the 7th that 7 part. I don't know, it's ranked relatively low on my list. I ranked it at 6th, but I really like the opening scene of it where they're all kind of leaving their homes.
Oh yeah,
That's really cool.
Hermione
Obliviates her parents.
Yeah.
Ron's kind of just standing outside the burrow looking stoically into the distance. And Harry's like saying goodbye to the Dursleys for the last time, and they cut a scene out of that where him and Dudley shake hands.
Yeah,
and
that would have been nice.
Kind of call it there, which would have been cool. But
yeah, that would have been nice. But yeah, and then obviously you get the 7 Potters, where they all were asked the name of the chapter in the in the book.
the Battle of the 7 Potters.
And then they're flying. They all get basically to the burrow. A couple people die, or at least one person dies. Mad-Eye. And then yeah, they have like a bit of time in the burrow. The wedding happens, and then Rufus ends up dying, the head of the Ministry of Magic. That means the burrow then gets infiltrated by Death Eaters. Voldemort is now fully in control. He controls everything. He infiltrates. They have the 3 have to leave: Harry, Hermione, and Ron. And then they kind of just start their journey from there, hunting Horcruxes, essentially. And then you get introduced to Deathly Hallows, and Dumbledore's kind of plan with those, and Dumbledore's mindset about those. Voldemort ends up finding out. He realizes that he needs a better wand because his wand is linked with... I think that a lot of this film was the wand kind of stuff, because... Yeah, I think the wand stuff, and then there's also the Horcrux hunting. I think there's the whole arc of the kind of relationship between the 3 of them, and the locket and what it does, and then Ron leaves. Harry and Hermione doing that. Cool. The dance scene is probably the highlight scene for me in that movie. I don't know about you guys. That might be the best scene that is not in a book, but the film's added in.
It works for the movie adaptation.
It works well.
It's like Harry's trying to like bring the mood up a little bit. They're all a bit down after Ron has left, and he just wants Hermione to be a little bit happier.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't even get a hint of the fact. It doesn't feel romantic to me.
Which
it's
is
entirely
nice.
platonic. They're just having. I think it's really well directed and well acted by Emma and Daniel.
100%. So yeah, that's kind of the. And then you finish the film with it feels even worse now, because the only hope that maybe it felt like Harry and the, for lack of a better word, good guys had, was that Voldemort's wand wouldn't really work against Harry's, because they share the same core, which is like for all intents and purposes, the engine behind the wand. They share the same kind of, it comes from the same place. So Voldemort gets the better wand, which is Dumbledore's old wand, which is considered like the most powerful wand like ever created. And so you kind of leave with Voldemort having it, and it's just a bit like, well, that's it then, isn't it? That's it.
I think I remember, I don't know if we knew it was going to be a part 1, but I think I remember at the end of the movie, I was a bit like, what?
I don't think we did. I don't think we knew.
Yeah, and then...
I remember checking my watch during the film and being like,
this is getting a bit long.
Yeah, like we're definitely 2 hours in, and like we haven't even got to... Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the start of where they started doing part 1s and part 2s. Like, I remember last year when the 3 of us went to see June, I thought it was just going to be June. But then it was, part 2's coming out. It's just like, they're doing this now, are they?
We saw the same with The Hobbit. We saw it with...
The Hobbit split into 3 movies.
Yeah. And Hunger Games.
Yeah, Hunger Games as well. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, Mockingjay is split into part 1 and 2, isn't it? What other ones are there? I'm sure there's some we're forgetting.
I've got a fun fact, since we're talking about splitting of movies.
Go on.
Okay.
It's technically for another film. I was gonna use this fact when we spoke about another film, but I think it works because what we're talking about. But originally, the idea was for the Goblet of Fire to be a part 1 and part 2.
Really?
That was originally what they were like planning to, but yeah, they were told by one of the directors. They convinced the studio to not do it, essentially. And this is a quote: "As far as I'm concerned, it's absolutely possible to do it in 1. I think it would be slightly embarrassing to do it in 2," which is what Newell, who I think he directed that film, Mike Newell,
okay,
told Empire in 2004.
Wow.
which would be. Can you imagine? Well, let's not talk about the fourth film.
Yeah,
but-
we'll come on to talk about it, but I think they could have done some interesting things. I will come back to talk about that that fact, I guess, because I think they could have done some interesting things. There's lots of subplots in number 4 they miss out, right? So
yeah, 100%.
This is what we might see in the series. Things like
yeah,
it's true.
it's true.
And there's a lot of stuff in part 1 that gets missed out as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't know where it would have necessarily. I think it would have been, if we were doing it on a timeline basis, it would have been in part 1, because it was when they're in Sirius's old house, 13 Grimmauld Place.
Yeah.
Lupin,
12.
12. I think it's 12.
Yeah, 12
Yeah.
Grimmauld Place, yeah. Well remembered.
Well remembered. In the books, Lupin comes to visit them. I don't know if the people who've read the book
He's
remember.
trying to escape his life, basically.
And he's like, I want to be with you guys, basically.
I shouldn't be a father. I don't.
He has an argument with Harry, is that right?
Exactly, yeah.
Harry's like, look, you've got a family.
You've got a son.
You can't be doing this. You have other priorities.
You're not on the run with us. Like, you're not part of us. You can't get in on this.
And then Lupin's kind of like, who are you to tell me?
Yeah, and it becomes quite heated.
He's clearly like a bit like deranged, out of his mind.
Yeah,
I see.
And then he ends up leaving. I don't know if any spells get cast.
I was wondering.
I feel like a spell might have got, because I feel like, or someone might have like hit someone.
Yeah, I think there was something.
Something. It was either physical or magical. I can't really remember, but yeah, I think that would have been really cool, because it's a completely different side of Lupin to what.
Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, that's
Jordan, you put this one quite high up on your list. It's 4th for you. It's up there. What's tell us the story of that.
I think what Jabi was saying about the 7th book being so good, I'm a big fan of this story in and of itself. So I think, like we said at the start, all of these movies are good. We're just ranking them based on our personal preferences. And I'm a big fan of this story, and I think it's executed well on film. I'm surprised, to be honest, that you guys put it so low.
I think it's just because my love for the other ones is so high. I don't, by any stretch, think this is a poor film at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. What about the story specifically do you think is your draw?
I think it especially in the later parts of Harry Potter, the story becomes a lot deeper, and there's a lot more meaning behind it. The lore is much more fleshed out, and so this kind of brings all of that together. We have the Deathly Hallows, we have Voldemort's history, we have all of these things that have been kind of added into the melting pot, and I think it forms nicely into something at the end here.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yours is more, as opposed to what we see on screen in the movie, it's like the first half of the 7th kind of installment of Harry Potter is what you like about.
Yeah. I'm a fan of the story of this. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's fair. I think that's fair, and that's probably why I like the 7th book so much.
Yeah.
But why mine is just more the adaptation of it. I feel like it could have been a bit better, but I think
the story is undoubtedly it's great.
It's really good.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
so
really
good.
good. It is really good.
Especially like you say, especially later in the story. In the earlier ones, they're quite. Yes, they do tie together in terms of sequentially, in terms of it's Harry's years at school or whatever, but it starts to really merge into one bigger story, and the kind of wider wizarding world is brought in. In the first few, it's kind of quite whimsical and fun. He's discovering this kind of new wizarding world.
It's still
about the house points in the it's very much about school, whereas this is more about the state of the wizarding world as you get to the later.
That's the kind of stuff I love. I love those wider worlds. I love that lore. I love that depth.
Yeah, 100%. All right, number 7. Any comments, thoughts, feelings before we wrap up and move on to the next one?
No, all right.
Jordan?
No, not from me.
That's it then. We've knocked out the last 2 movies in the franchise scored the lowest.
That's serious, man.
Wow.
Number 8 was 8th, and number 7 was 7th.
I'm pretty good because my list is strong so far.
It will continue for you, Jabu.
Oh, is it?
The next ranking is Jabu's 6th one.
Okay.
Wow.
That's great.
Don't look.
I can't remember what
Yeah,
it
you
is.
can't remember what it is.
Oh, yeah, I can't.
Don't look.
Okay.
But yeah, moving on to we're diverting away from the sequence, so it's not 876.
I think I remember which one it is now.
The next one is number 2,
Oh wow,
an earlier movie, ranked 7th for myself, 3rd for Jordan
Oh my god!
and 6th for Jabu.
I can't believe you guys. You put that
man.
7th and 6th.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Oh my god!
I think, again, it just happened to fall there for me. I don't know, it's 7th for me.
Wow.
Do you know what? I really do like number 2.
Me too.
There's some funny moments, like we were laughing before we were recording about I didn't know you could read. Draco Malfoy says it to
That was well
Goyle.
performed. That was well performed.
Glasses. Didn't know you could read. But I used to find that so hilarious when I was younger.
And that line was improvised by Tom Felton, apparently.
Testament
which is
to his
a
acting skill.
young actor doing his thing. But yeah, do we want to talk a bit about what happens in the book? And then we
Yeah,
can
I
kind
mean,
of talk
since
about
I ranked this one so highly, I think maybe I can talk to this
It
one.
makes sense for you to tell us.
Okay, so where do we start? In this movie, it starts with Harry Potter at home. He's with the Dursleys. He's come back after his great first year of Hogwarts. And then this house elf shows up in his room. This random thing that he'd never seen before was bouncing on his bed. And he kind of just comes to accept it because, he thinks this is just part of being in the wizarding world. And then Dobby, this house elf, is now saying to him, don't go back to Hogwarts because it's going to be super dangerous there.
Yeah.
And as house elves, we love you, Harry Potter, because you killed off Voldemort and all this stuff. So he's come to protect Harry Potter. But because Harry loves Hogwarts so much, he rejects this and he's like, I'm going back. I'm going back. And then Dobby does some stuff. He drops a cake on someone's head. And then Harry gets locked in his room, basically. From which he is then rescued by his mates,
What a good friend, man.
Ron, Fred,
Flew in
and
a car
George.
to come and save him.
you and that bloody pigeon, aren't you?
That's a great moment. With Vernon
You know
falling
what?
out the window, that's a great
Vernon
moment.
Dursley is such a slept-on character. Like, he's
so
hilarious.
great.
He's
Yeah.
so funny. If you just watch like a compilation of like Vernon Dursley's moments, that's
Justice!
so funny.
What movie is that in?
The fifth one.
The fifth one.
Justice! When he gets the howler.
It's so funny, man.
No, Vernon's hilarious.
So he's rescued. He's taken to the Burrow, from where he then goes to Hogwarts. He shows up at platform 9 3/4.
Oh, yes.
And everyone goes through the wall except Harry and Ron, because Dobby is knocking about somewhere. He's sealed up the wall so Harry can't get in and can't go to Hogwarts. So they're stressing out.
House Elf Magic is so OP.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just as a side point.
It is OP.
It's so overpowered. But carry on, sorry.
But Harry being Harry, he figures out another way. They get in the car that he was rescued with and fly off all the way up to the Scottish Highlands from London.
From King's Cross.
I don't know how they do that on a single tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they're running on magic fumes or something.
Yeah. They get there. They crash into the Whomping Willow. Ron's wand breaks.
1-1.
1-1.
1-1-1.
Shout out to Lavender. Lavender Brown.
Ron's wand breaks, and then they end up getting there. And they're at Hogwarts against Dobby's wishes, basically. Yeah, and the school year kind of just progresses, and
Yeah, and
Discover a bit about the Chamber of Secrets.
Chamber of
The heir
Secrets.
apparent.
the heir to
So
Slytherin.
the kind of plot when they're there in the year is that there's people are dying, or not dying, getting petrified, and no one really knows why or how this is happening, right?
yeah, and then you get introduced to racism in the prejudice in the wizarding world. With like, I don't even want to say the word now. But like with like being Muggle born, mudblood.
Oh my god, you said that with such venom.
And then you kind of learn about Salazar Slytherin's
Chamber of Secrets.
and him being like not liking Muggleborns, and wizarding or magic needs to be kept to wizarding families.
Yeah.
And then I think it's nice as well with Hermione being like the strongest testament to why it's stupid.
Yeah.
That mindset, but it's
Yeah.
cool.
It's a pretty intense theme for a child's book / movie.
It is, to be fair.
But I think they do it in a way where it's like it teaches the children or people, anyone that's consuming it, a valuable lesson, but it doesn't really rub it in your face or anything.
It's
So-
done in a tasteful way, in quite a covert way, but it's still quite a strong theme.
Shout out to Gilderoy Lockhart. He's such an interesting character.
Hilarious character.
Such an interesting character. Introduced to Lucius Malfoy in this one as well, who becomes quite an important character.
His interaction with Mr. Weasley at the bookshop near the beginning, I
Yeah.
think it's quite cool, where he's like, he's having a bit of a talk off with like Harry and Weasleys.
I think you really start to see that some. I think you'll come to see that some wizarding families are better. Like you can really see the difference in the Malfoys and the Weasleys.
Not everyone's super nice.
Yeah, I think it really starts to show that. So that's an interesting one.
A fun fact is that this film as well, it kind of started the idea of post-credit scenes from I don't know if it was the very first one, but it's like I think it's probably one of the early films to ever do a post-credit scene.
So do you want to explain what the post-credit scene is? Because I didn't realize until like 3 years ago or something. I've never seen it before.
So the only reason I knew is because as a child we would watch it, and I think we just left it playing. Like we had to go off and do something, and then we came back because we heard like the TV going when it was on VHS,
the videos.
So we're thinking the TV's done, but then we're hearing like stuff like as if it started playing again. So we all ran back in, and it's like, wait, what? Like since when was this going?
What?
But basically, Gilderoy Lockhart is like at the end of the film he loses his memory, and the post-credit scene is basically he's basically in like a bookshop, and there's a book and it's titled "Who Am I?" which is kind of like off of the running joke that he's forgotten who he is, but he's an author, so it's that kind of thing. Because the beginning of the film he's releasing a book called Magical Me, and then end credit scene is "Who Am I?" But I think that's a really nice touch, and everyone thinks post-credit scenes was Marvel, but really Harry Potter were doing it long
back
before,
in the early 2000s.
long before.
But as well, we didn't talk about the whole diary thing and Tom Riddle.
Right.
That's
Early Voldemort.
Yeah. So Harry finds this diary, which he then for some reason decides to start writing in, and then it starts responding to him like, "Hi Harry, I'm Tom Riddle."
terrifying, by the way.
Absolutely terrifying.
And then-
Sick though.
Because you're 12.
It's ChatGPT. It's an early form of chat.
Tom Riddle AI.
And because Harry's kind of been learning about Heir of Slytherin, and Harry being Harry, he wants to solve the mystery and save everybody.
Sorry.
He basically
Harry being Harry.
he asks the diary, "Do you know anything about this?" And he's like, "Look, I can show you." And he gets sucked in, and he sees Hogwarts 50 years ago.
He's trying to frame
Hagrid as the heir of Slytherin.
beloved Hagrid. How could it be Hagrid?
It's like how?
And then we meet Aragog. Is Aragog in this movie?
Aragog is in this movie.
Yeah.
The spiders.
Farewell, Aragog.
You have that's a spell. I don't believe it's in the book, but a spell which is in the
Orania Exume.
yeah. That's
Oh, right,
in the,
yeah.
That's not in the books, I believe. And then obviously you get introduced to not spiders. Why can't it be followed of butterflies? Ron's continuous fear of spiders, which apparently is like a real thing. Apparently Rupert Grint is like, actually very scared of
Really?
spiders.
That must have been terrifying for him then.
Apparently, oh gosh, imagine he's like 13 or something. It was a
Massive spider.
And there's just bare of them like running around and like. Because even when we did the Harry Potter world, do you remember when we went to Harry Potter
walk
world?
through the little Forbidden Forest area.
Yeah, and we were with like some of your family.
Yeah.
And it was like
Pretty intense.
it felt a bit like it was a lot. Like I don't know.
They had music as well, so it always helps.
Yeah, like I remember feeling a bit like, oh, this is not like just la di da.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, so it ends up with them. Hermione figures out what the problem is, and so, but she gets petrified before she can tell anyone.
Yeah.
But she's written a little note on the.
Now you
on a
know
piece of
what?
paper.
I
This is a
want to push this up.
No,
on my
we're not
list.
allowed.
We're not allowed. But
We're not
like
allowed.
just talking about it, I almost want to.
It's amazing. I
It is a
really,
good
really
film.
like
It
this
is a
movie.
good film.
And then Harry, who has earlier in the movie learned that he can talk to snakes, he can speak Parseltongue, which we actually find out in the first movie, but no one knows
But
about.
we don't recognize it as like a weird thing.
Yeah, we just think, oh, it's a wizard thing.
Wizard magic
So he opens up the Chamber of Secrets
with the Hashasa.
with the Heshasa. You go down, and this is where Ron's broken wand comes into play, because
Yes.
Lockhart steals. They basically get Lockhart to come with them because he's the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He needs to help them fix this problem. he comes with them, but then obviously he's a terrible coward. He's a massive fraud. So once they get down there, he manages to wrestle Ron's wand off him. And the reason he's been able to become so successful and as a celebrity is because he's great at memory charms. So he can learn everything there is to know about all these great feats that other wizards have done, and then cast a memory charm on them, and then claim the credit for himself. Yeah. So he tries to do that to Harry and Ron, but because Ron's wand's broken, it backfires, and he loses his memory.
Which is a theme earlier in the film, because Ron tries to cast a spell on Draco, and then with the eat slugs, and then he ends up. So it works quite nicely. To be fair, it works very nicely.
The magic of storytelling. Everything's intentional.
Yeah. And like Ron's wand specifically is like, it's
a recurring theme.
It's really nice.
Yeah, it's well done.
What do you think of young Voldemort? You meet like a few scenes later, or like a scene after that kind of thing.
I think the actor. I don't know who the actor is, but I think he does a great job.
Just generally like the vibe of it and stuff.
He's very like intense, and I imagine that's what Tom Riddle was like.
Yeah. Interesting though, because Riddle is described in later books as like very charming, which I feel like you see when you're in the memory, like where
in number 6.
No, in number 6 as well, but also in the diary, in that brief interaction he has with Dumbledore, when he's like, "Oh, is there anything you wish to tell me?" And he was like, "No, sir." Like it's very like it was a short line, but I feel like it. You can feel the.
Yeah.
You can understand why Dumbledore felt uneasy about him, but you can see why everyone else might have just been like, yeah, he's great. He's good looking. He's worked hard. That's like how they describe him. So.
He's a good kid.
Exactly, but he's not really.
He's not. And then Harry goes in to the Chamber of Secrets on his own because Ron is now trapped with Lockhart and they have to go away. He meets up with Tom Riddle. Turns out he's been using Ginny this whole time as his puppet through the diary. And Harry manages to slay the basilisk on his own and destroy the diary, which actually turns out to be a really important plot point for the whole of Harry Potter.
Massive plot point, which she probably... Well, some people might say she didn't mean to do it, but...
Was the whole story planned out?
Is it retcon? Is it... Yeah, it's a contentious one.
Either way, I think even if it is a retcon, it's done well.
It is done well.
It's
absolutely.
done well. So, and yeah, I think it doesn't feel like there's many holes in it at all. So
no.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah. He destroys a Horcrux with one of the only things that can destroy a Horcrux that just so happens to be in his hand at that moment.
The whole basilisk battle is pretty cool.
It is cool. As a child, I remember being like, this is cool.
The Chamber of Secrets is quite a grand kind of set as well, like the whole Salazar Slytherin statue
and it's sick with the snakes like going down on the like.
Oh yeah,
like that's quite
the little alcoves or whatever they're called.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Alcoves throughout the little pathways, the little corridors, and the little sewer system.
Yeah, very very cool. I think you also learn about like Dumbledore explaining to Harry that the reason you can talk to snakes, the reason you could have been put into Slytherin was because Voldemort transferred a bit of his powers that night. He tried to kill you into yourself, which is why you're able to do certain things, which then becomes also a massive plot point. At the end of it, which I hear it's done well. I think it's done
from book 1. It is mentioned that they have some kind of connection.
Yeah.
From their wands to all of these kind of different things, and it's seen again and again and again. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think she had the idea of Horcruxes and Harry was a Horcrux? But
I don't think it was fleshed out. Like, I don't think it was fleshed out. I think there was maybe like an idea. Yeah, there's a connection. But I don't think it was like. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think there was no concrete ending. This is the words I'm going to put on the page, but it was kind of like this is going to play a big part later. I think.
I agree. And I'll work it out, and I'll do it in a way which gives me quite a lot of space to explore it a bit later.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, it's written over such a relatively long period of time, and there's a lot of planning and a lot of things that need to be taken into account when you're making a world of that magnitude. So
I think talking about future planning and stuff, something we see she has to kind of get herself out of later on is the whole time turner situation with Hermione, who has a time turner. And now if the ability to travel through time exists, now a lot of other things don't make sense. And so in the fifth book, she ends up destroying all of the time turners,
Which makes
freak
sense.
accidents,
Yeah.
just so that
Everything is,
Yeah.
makes sense.
You got to write your way out.
Yeah,
I think.
100%. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We can talk more
Yeah.
about that, but that, yeah.
I guess
It is a good film. Do you know what? I feel a bit iffy, but
it's low on both of our lists, but it's very high. It's third ranked on Jordan's list. So.
it is a good film. It's a good plot. It's a nice little whodunit. It's a nice whodunit.
it's a bit of a whodunit.
And then you find out at the end. I think because we're so comfortable with the films, I think you forget, like, you don't expect it to be Voldemort of all people.
Yeah.
Because I think in your mind he's like, he's alive. Voldemort. Dumbledore said there's ways in which he can return. Cool, but he's not here now. Like we see it as like someone is doing this right now, and
Yeah.
and when he does the whole. 'Cause I watched that scene recently, incidentally, where he writes his name out, Tom Marvolo Riddle, and he switches it, and it's like, I am Lord Voldemort, and the music is like, and he's like, you're the heir of Slytherin, you're Voldemort. He's like, did you really think? I was, yeah, it was. I think that's a good, cool scene.
Yeah. There's a fun fact about that scene as well, is that in different languages, Tom Riddle's name is actually different, so that they can now change it to be.
Oh,
I heard about that actually.
Wait, so how do you mean?
They change his middle name or something to make it. They can still spell out "I am Lord Voldemort" in their respective languages.
Like, so here's some examples. So in French, his name is Tom Elvis Jedusor.
Wow.
Because it needs to be Je suis Voldemort.
Wow.
And in
That's
Swedish,
something I've never considered before.
in Swedish, it's Tom Gus Mervolo Dolder. Because in Spanish, in Latin, sorry, it's ego sum Lord Voldemort. So it's interesting that the
That's so
experience
interesting.
of it. Well, we know him as Tom Riddle. In France, they know him as Tom Jedusor or whatever.
And so his name through all the films in the French version is
I guess so.
not Tom Riddle.
No.
Just so that in the second one, it can spell his name.
And then do you think it's consistent through the rest of the films?
I guess so. Yeah, it must
Yeah, it has to be. Surely.
Surely.
Yeah.
That's incredible though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's really, that's just something that I've never like.
Yeah.
It's something so it's interesting. It's crazy. I don't know. I think that's crazy.
They need to make it an anagram in their language. Yeah.
And then that sets the precedence for what his name is in that language for the rest of the.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Do you think? Quick question. Before, sorry. Do you think she starts with like that anagram? What comes first?
I think Marvolo is the like thing that helps it along the way.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you think she starts with his name is Lord Voldemort, and then it's like let's change it?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't think she had Tom Riddle as a name when she wrote the first book.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my assumption. And then when
she added the I am to give a few more vowels.
she needs the vowels.
She needs the vowel.
That's fair. That makes sense.
Marvolo, like loads of vowels in that middle name.
I agree with you guys. It's cool though. As a kid, I remember like when I remember it being like
and the way he like spins it in the air. Like that's so cool.
I remember thinking it was and it kind of burns out and like kind of fade. I think it was very magical.
It's well portrayed on screen as well. I think. Yeah.
Which is something about these Harry Potter movies that is sometimes underappreciated. I think the movies are very good as well on the stand. Like they miss out a lot of book stuff, but they stand on their own very well.
And we talk about this all the time, but the franchise it would still be very successful in its own right, of course it would, but it just wouldn't be what it is today without the movies to accompany the books.
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah. The books wouldn't be nearly as successful without the
yeah. They would still be a very successful book series in their own right, but yeah,
not what it is. The greatest like the biggest grossing franchise
one of
or something.
Up there with like
best-selling books.
Yeah,
after the Bible, the best-selling book is Harry Potter after the Bible.
Yeah, it's insane.
All right, let's
wait. Sorry.
Okay.
One last fun fact about this movie is that John Williams wasn't actually available to write the score in the same way he was in the first movie because he was working on a bunch of other stuff like Attack of the Clones.
He was too busy writing Across the Stars.
So apparently there's a Quidditch chase. There's a Quidditch chase between Harry and Draco,
Yeah, I remember that.
and there's a speeder chase in Attack of the Clones. And if you listen closely,
No way.
the Quidditch chase is just a slightly modified version
No way.
of the speed.
We're
This
going to
is,
have to,
again,
after this podcast,
we're
we're going to have to go
fact
and
check
listen
that.
to it.
I don't know if that's 100% true, but I researched before and I found that
That is shocking.
That's an incredible fact.
the Quidditch chase is a slightly modified version of the speeder chase.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to have to, guys,
School.
straight after this, we're going to have to check
Yeah,
this
we
out.
have to make sure to check that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we need to check that out. That's a really good fact.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's so cool.
Because he was just doing so many other
And
things.
the same year, innit? Because Attack of the Clones was
Attack of the Clones
2002.
2002, that's right.
And this is 2002
Oh,
as well,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, must have been them.
Incredible. Nice one. That's sick. That's proper sick.
That's a really cool fact, man. Yeah.
We should fact check that. If it's wrong, we'll cut it out.
No, we'll keep it in even.
That's all right.
Even, but yeah, I think it's sick anyway. Even if it's wrong, it sounds sick.
Everyone believes in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's really cool.
Me and Tyler recognize cool. It's low down, maybe just off of the strength of the others, but we might have put it a bit higher. But it just is. It after number my bottom one. The rest of them are just good films.
Yeah.
So this just
Yeah.
is a very good film.
I
but
couldn't agree more.
It
But
I couldn't agree more.
For
Yeah.
me, this is my top two are ones that kind of flesh out the lore a lot in the world, which I really like. But in terms of just like comfortable movies that I really enjoy watching, I think this is probably my number one.
I think as well with the before we move on to the next ones, I think it's worth saying the earlier ones, yes, probably because they're shorter, but the movies are some of the longer movies, but they adapt the books very well. I think because the books are shorter, they have more time to spend actually talking about the different elements of the book.
yeah.
They need to be selective with their choices of what they show on screen for the later movies, but for this one, the first two or three even
Are
I'd say,
very long.
They're long movies, but they also adapt the books very well.
I think me and Jordan have the same fact. Do you want to say?
Number two is the longest movie.
Oh, that's not what I was going to say.
Number two is actually the longest movie in the franchise.
Is it actually?
As far as I know, yeah. At
Interesting.
161 minutes.
Interesting.
That's long for a... Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
nearly
it's
3
very
hours.
What were you going to say, Jabu?
Well, my fact, I don't know if it's completely, but I think from what I read, they do it in so the longest book is Order of the Phoenix, and that's the shortest film. And the shortest book, which I thought was Philosopher's Stone, but it might be Chamber of Secrets, is the longest film.
Oh.
If that makes sense. So they run, and then the next longest, I think, is Philosopher's Stone, which is the next shortest book, and I think it kind of goes like that.
Oh,
It's something I
interesting.
read. But I don't know how but it's like that general theme.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's an interesting fact, actually, because when the book is shorter, there's more opportunity to now include more of it in the movie.
Exactly what Tyler was saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it works,
With the longer books, it's like, okay, we got to cut a lot of this out. Let's just start cutting.
Yeah.
and I think that's where my issue maybe comes with some of the, because I'm like, this is such a long book, include everything, which is amazing, but it's like you can't. So
Yeah. All right. Number two. Anything else? Speak now or forever hold your peace, lads.
I will hold my peace.
Cool. Okay, so we got 8th, 7th, and 6th ranking. We got number 8, number 7, and number 2. We're now moving in to what's actually joint 4th/5th. So these two scored the same in terms of total points. The rankings are slightly different. One of them is ranked, 2 people ranked at 3rd, and 1 person ranked at 6th. And the other one, 2 people ranked at 5th, and 1 person ranked at 2nd. So it's an interesting
we know
one.
the joint. You guys have the same opinions of all the movies.
Oh my gosh.
It's true for one of them, but the other one,
Oh, okay.
Me and you match, and
Okay.
Jabu's actually different. I'll tell you both of them, and then we can talk about one of them and then the other one. But these ones are joint 4th. The movies are Prisoner of Azkaban and The Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, no,
Interesting.
I'm not happy about that.
Okay, so we know Jabu ranked Philosopher's Stone second.
So
Yes, I did.
So
not happy about that.
we'll talk about Prisoner of Azkaban first, and then Philosopher's Stone. I guess. So I'm going to say them now, the rankings. So for Prisoner of Azkaban, Jabu and myself ranked at 3rd, and Jordan ranked at 6th. bit lower down in his list.
Goodness me.
And for Philosopher's Stone, Jordan and myself ranked it 5th, and Jabby ranked his 2nd.
So am I talking about Philosopher's Stone first, or were you going to talk about?
Yeah, let's
Or
talk
should
about
we do a
Philosopher's Stone.
summary?
Yeah, do a summary of Philosopher's Stone. Go on.
Philosopher's Stone is
Wow.
where it all begins. It's where it all begins.
Should we just turn this into an audiobook? You can just quote the whole first
fun
movie.
fact about Philosopher's Stone. I would say I know 95% of the lines from Philosopher's Stone.
Wow.
I'd say about 95% of all the lines from Philosopher's Stone.
Jabby, fun fact, Jabby wrote the screenplay when he was -1.
Yeah, no, I know, like, pretty much. I can, like, I get annoying. Like, if you don't watch Philosopher's Stone with me, because I'll just be annoying.
You just quote the whole movie.
Yeah, like, I know it very, very well. That's not really a fun fact; it's just personal facts. But in terms of, I think it's great. I think it. Well, I don't think it is the. It's the birth of Harry Potter. It's the first, like, introduction we get into the world. And I think it's a great introduction. You start off with him being placed on the doorstep, like an Amazon package.
That was before Amazon packages were a thing.
Overnight
Harry
delivery.
Potter was the original next day delivery.
Prime. Do you know what I mean? And it's like quite a, I don't know if the word is ominous, but it's quite a, like, mysterious scene. It's like, oh, who is he? Who are these people? She just turned from a cat into a...
Yeah, very
They're wearing
magical.
big hats, so okay, they're probably wizards, but, like...
You're
what's-
introduced to the magic of it quite quickly.
Yeah, like, what's going on here? And then, obviously, Albus does the thing with the lights and stuff, which is quite cool.
The Illuminator.
Yeah, which becomes a big part of the seventh book, eighth film, seventh film,
Yeah.
Seventh film.
seventh film.
I'm still here.
I'm still. But yeah, like, I think it's a really good opening scene.
It's interesting that the movie went a different direction to the book with the opening scene, because
Yes.
the book focuses on Vernon Dursley going about his day working at Grunning's Drills or something.
And he's noticing things are a bit weird.
Yeah, whereas the movie goes straight into the magic. You know, you see McGonagall and
I think that's a
Dumbledore.
good decision.
It makes sense.
But
on
I agree.
screen.
I think it makes sense to do that for the book, because I think it works for a book to start in the way it did, and I think it works well for the film to start in the way it did.
I agree. I think for the movie you have to get straight into it, otherwise people will lose interest.
Book, you can be a bit
Yeah,
more.
absolutely.
You know it's a bit more of an investment with the book, so you can be a bit more.
And it's still,
Yeah,
it's still,
with
it's not like it's not entertaining.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
especially considering it's a kid's book.
And
This is
it is
designed,
a kid's
this
book,
is aimed
yeah.
for children. to
And I
read.
think it is important when you're reading it to get introduced to the world through the eyes of someone who's not normal, quote unquote.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel like this is actually quite different to what Muggles feel.
It's
We
like,
are
oh, they're all
Muggles,
weird and strange and all of that.
yeah.
kind of
100%.
So, and I think that's probably intentional that it's the world is introduced through the eyes of someone that's like you.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm not like Vernon Dursley. How dare you suggest such a thing?
But yeah, you
Don't you work at
Grunnings?
Oh yeah, to be fair.
Grunnings?
But yeah, so going forward, you do like a big time jump. Harry's like 11, and you see he's being mistreated by his aunt and uncle and cousin, and yeah, they're being mistreated. There's a few little things where it's like, oh, he has something special about him. Then he gets then introduced to the magic world by Hagrid, who is a great character. I really like Hagrid. He's just that safe space. He's just safe.
Oh
Like,
yeah, he really is.
he might not be like the most smart person or the cleverest person, but he just means well and he's loyal and he's
Yeah.
just
He cares.
I think
cares. He's safe.
he's a very important character for Harry as a character. Like he brings him into the world. And I think it again. I think I've heard them talking about it's intentional that he's when Harry's like quote unquote dead in the final one, he's carrying him back out of the
Oh,
world.
wow.
Almost.
Yeah.
Like,
that's great.
it's pretty
Yeah,
powerful
that's
stuff.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
great.
Yeah, go on.
But yeah, Hagrid is. I think he's a great. Hagrid is a great introductory. He's the best person I think to introduce Harry and the reader to the world, because he won't explain it in the most technical way, but he keeps it quite fun and light-hearted and stuff, but still gives like important information. You learn about Voldemort. You realize that what Harry
That's why Harry's famous.
Yeah, that's why Harry's famous, and it's not what his aunt and uncle told him about. There's a bit of a debacle between Hagrid and his aunt and uncle because they're like, he can't go and be a magician or a wizard.
Another set of absolute stunning zingers by Vernon Dursley.
He will not be going.
I'm not going to pay for some old crackpot fool to teach him magic tricks.
And then, yeah, you fast forward, he's on the train to Hogwarts, he meets Ron. It allows the reader, or the watcher, sorry, we're talking about the movie, to be introduced to how Hogwarts it works. And I think it's cool because it works quite similarly almost to like a boarding school in the UK. So that's, I think, where a lot of the relatability for the book and the film comes in, because it's like, oh yeah, I have lessons like that, or like we have assembly, or things like that. And especially probably if you're in boarding, none of us boarded, but I think it just is really well done. And it's quite light-hearted, it's quite fun, but there's still that ominous tone, the undertone of like dark, like something's going on. And then obviously you get introduced to Snape, who is hilarious, but also a great, like, rest in peace Alan Rickman. He is one of the best actors in that whole 100%. Series.
And we're talking about a lineup of really big
strong actors.
You're looking at Maggie Smith, Richard Harris, Michael Gambon. You've got Emma Thompson,
Bonham Carter.
Oh, so many really big names. It's an incredible cast.
So yeah, you get that undertone. You realise Snape had a bit of a disagreement with, or a bit more than a disagreement, but he didn't really like Harry's father. That's why he doesn't really like Harry. You think that you learn about the Philosopher's Stone, and the school is like hiding something.
Yeah. And Hagrid keeps slipping and like
telling them more about stuff that they shouldn't be knowing. And then they end up realising that, well, they think that Snape is trying to find the stone to bring Voldemort back to the power. A
very childish perspective, you know, the teacher they don't like, who's a bit harsh. Of course he's the bad guy, you know?
He has to be.
He has to be.
Because he looked at me funny, and he gave me more homework and a detention. He has to be in league with Voldemort. And they get through, basically, no one believes them, so they're like, okay, we need to go get the stone ourselves.
Yeah.
To stop a teacher who they believe to be Snape. Get through all the obstacles in the way of it, and they realise it wasn't Snape, and they were wrong. It ends up being Quirrell, who is actually the teacher they thought was really nice, and they kind of got along with, and he's had a bit of a stammer.
Yeah, he's an innocent. He comes across as very innocent.
Very innocent, but I think the acting in it is really well done, because it's such a, like, when they meet and he's like, yes, does seem the type, doesn't it? I think it's such a good. He's like, oh, so he was faking it the whole time.
Yeah.
It's not, if he was like still kind of a bit jittery and had a bit of a stammer and stuff, when Harry met him, I think it could have worked, but I think the complete switch, it was like, oh, we've been hoodwinked.
We've all been fooled here.
Literally. So I think it works well. You face to face with Voldemort, who is like possessed Quirrell, kind of. Yeah. He's like sharing a body with Quirrell. Quirrell basically dies because
this is where we get to the point where there's a connection.
There's a connection between Voldemort. Voldemort can't touch Harry, and he can't do anything to Harry because Harry has a protection from his mum, who he early learned that died to save him, basically, and that love covers him. Which is some quite cool themes.
That's the overarching theme of Harry Potter, really, isn't it? That love conquers all.
Literally. So yeah, that's the summary. It's a bit long, but that's kind of that's the summary of Harry Potter. And
it only makes sense for you to have summarised that, because you ranked it second, one of your second top. Why?
I love that film. I think I understand it is quite nostalgic based. My ranking is solely on nostalgia. Like,
that's valid though.
I really like, this film meant so much to me as a child. Like, it was so, like, even just Harry Potter for me, like, it's just it meant so much as a child. Like, my parents bought me the book. I was asking to read Harry Potter before I could even read. Like, like, they bought me the books before I could even read. I remember just holding, like, I can't, like, trying to open it, I can't read, but it's like, I have the Harry Potter. I just remember that feeling. So when it's now like watching the films and stuff, because that was all around the similar time as well, because it's a few years after the first film had come out. I think the second film might have even been out, but yeah, it was very special to me. And like, I think, well, this is going a bit more personal, but I don't mind sharing it.
No,
like,
of course.
Like even recent, like when I've had some tough stuff going on in my life and whatever, like, or like tumultuous times in life and things are a bit all over the place, like I feel like I'll watch Harry Potter just to kind of, it's a nice kind of just feel good. It just kind of takes me back to a time where I feel like things were a bit more simpler and I can just be, it's my Hagrid. Harry Potter is my Hagrid. It's my safe space. It's my,
some would say Hogwarts is home.
Hogwarts is my home. Yeah,
Wow.
honestly. So that's that. And that first film will always be, I think, I didn't rank it number one because I think, as I'll explain, I think the storyline of the one I put number one is just a lot stronger, but it just means so much to me, this film. Yeah, so that's my reasoning. I've dragged on a bit, but yeah, sorry.
We ranked it 5th.
Yeah.
Go on.
I think this. I think a lot of the value behind this movie is very nostalgic for a lot of people. It's for me, it's very much a kid's movie. You know, the perspective of Harry, and it's supposed to be. It is a kid's movie. When I get value from a movie, it's because of the depth of the world and the depth of the story. And I think in this first movie specifically, we're still very early on. We don't know a lot about the Wizarding World, and there's not even much that exists about the Wizarding World. So there's no way that we can get that depth that I really like in a movie.
Do you think perhaps a younger Jordan would have ranked it higher?
Potentially. I mean, I remember.
That's interesting.
I remember having a really good time watching it as a child. So.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm much the same as you. Like, it's early on, and I think it's important to tell the story through the eyes of the 11-year-old because that's the audience it's intended for.
Yes.
And the audience grows up with Harry through his time. I think
Which
that's
is special.
One of the strongest things about Harry Potter is that you're growing up with the characters.
Yes, agreed.
But yeah, I think for similar reasons, that's why I've put it down there, because it's not really fleshing out like you. One of the things I really admire is the world building and really understanding how it's a really well put together world, and you do see that on screen because of the magic of the set designs and the way the thing is designed. It looks very wondrous and exciting, and the score's amazing, and all these kind of things, and it introduces us to the Wizarding World. And it does it in a great way. But yeah, I just think plot and kind of world building is of course stronger later down the line.
I think what we also see is the evolution of the depth of story throughout, because at the start it's very much focused on it's a whimsical, wonderful Wizarding World, and we see that in everyone's wearing a hat all the time. You know, you got to put on robes. There's floating pumpkins, but from number 3, I think, onwards, no one's wearing a robe anymore.
It's far more serious.
Even the first years and second years don't wear robes, so they've clearly switched directions now. They're focusing on.
But I think you can almost see that as like like we say, it's told from the view of Harry Potter, who it looks strange and weird in the first 2, and it's very like camp and like, oh, this is very different, like kind of thing. But then in the later movies, it's more normal to him, so it feels more normal to us.
That's a really interesting perspective. That's a really interesting.
What a great perspective. I like that a lot.
I never thought about that.
I like that a lot. It's great. No, I do. It's sick. I think that's really cool.
Tyler feels hype. Came up with a good idea.
Yeah, should we move on to the next one then? I've got a couple of fun things that I found when I was researching about this one. Actually, we can quickly speak to them. Apparently, J.K. Rowling was meant to play Lily Potter in the flashback.
I saw that as well. Yeah,
in the flashback when Hagrid explained to Harry it was dark times, whatever. And it's not a big role. It'd be more like a cameo kind of thing. And she reprises her role in the later movies in flashbacks, obviously, but.
That's quite cool.
Apparently, she was like, I just could never, I don't want to touch it because it would just make it bad. So I'd rather someone like a proper actor does it.
Fun fact, Lily Potter is one of the 14 actresses that appears in every single movie. She reprises her role in every single movie. I don't know if I can call out.
Well, she's in the second one because of the book. Remember, he's looking at the book at the very first scene.
Oh, she's in a picture.
She's in the picture of the scene.
What about like the 4th one? When is she?
I I can't.
Oh, unless if you count her voice, when she's screaming like Harry.
Oh yeah,
and
she
stuff
is there
like-
because she's the ghost. She come from the spells.
Oh yeah, let
When
go.
the-
Let
let
go. It's
go.
time to let go.
Number 3.
She screams Harry when he's getting done in by the Dementors. Is that her voice? I think it is.
Oh, it might be. If it's her voice,
think it's
then
meant to
yeah.
be.
Number 5.
Snape's memories. The memories.
Yeah. No. What?
That's a kid.
That's a kid. Are we saying Lily Potter is
No,
an
I
actor
thought it was Lily
or
Potter.
The actress.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about her as a character.
I don't remember her number 5 or number 6, to be honest. But fair. I mean, I believe it. I believe it's her.
Yeah, I think potentially the fact is as a character though, but
No, it's the actress.
Oh, wow, that's
Geraldine
crazy.
Somerville is one of the 14 actors to appear in every movie.
If JK agreed, she would have been in every single movie.
Which would have been quite cool as a creator.
Yes, but
Fair enough. Also, another fun fact. In the first Harry Potter movie, the boy who lived Harry didn't cast a single spell. Apparently. Which I've been trying to remember, but I
Wow.
don't think he does. I don't think he casts any spells in that film.
There's the bit at the start where he first gets his wand, and there's a little bit of a.
But he's not casting he's not
suppose
saying
so,
an
yeah.
incantation.
Oh, he's not actually casting a spell. I guess when he flicks the ones that don't work for him, something happens. So he's performing magic.
But he doesn't say that.
It's not a spell.
I guess you could say him flying a broom is performing magic as well and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So yeah, he doesn't actually cast
Interesting.
any spells, which is quite interesting. He doesn't say any of the Hello Hamoras. That's all Ron and Hermione. That's a bit of banter between them.
Yeah. That's true.
He doesn't say Wingardium Leviosa. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Prisoner of Azkaban, which it came joint fourth in the list here. So I guess I can kind of summarize it a bit. Me and Jordan both ranked this one third, and Jabby ranked it sixth, a bit lower down in his list, which is the other way around. Me and Jabby ranked it third, and Jordan ranked this one sixth, which is an interesting one. But yeah, I guess Harry's returning for his third year. It kind of starts with the whole scene with Aunt Marge and blowing her up, and then she kind of
Very
floats
funny,
away,
very
which is-
funny.
It's a very interesting.
Yeah.
But I think also something you notice is it's immediately a much darker tone
100%.
compared to the first two, and I think that kind of speaks to Chris Columbus directed the first two, but they came in with a new director for this one, Alfonso Cuarón. So yeah, it's interesting to see that immediate shift. But I
Even
think
just
it
the
works.
colours, isn't it?
Yeah, the colour scheme is very much more grey.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we said, it's about Harry growing up, and I think it works a lot with the kind of what happens in the plot and how the characters are maturing.
Even
So-
when you think of a 13-year-old, that's when you're entering that phase of just being a bit.
Yeah. But yeah, Harry leaves home after blowing up Aunt Marge. Gets on the night bus with Stan Shunpike. That's a great, very comedic scene. Really funny.
What are you doing down there? What'd you fall over for?
Come on, let's not wait for the grass to grow.
All of that kind of thing.
What a great guy.
Which is really funny. But yeah, he kind of learns a bit more about this character called Sirius Black, who's like kind of this mad axe man murderer kind of thing. And he gets told that this is going to be his. It always seems like the stakes are being raised, and it's his most dangerous year yet at Hogwarts, I guess. But
Because we think that Sirius is like a follower of Voldemort, and he's broken out to try and
Find Harry.
find Harry.
And then we come to learn about, the Dementors, who are like the guardians of Azkaban. They guard all of the prisoners and make sure they don't get out. They literally suck the joy out of you. And kind of the Dementor's kiss is like kind of taking out part of your soul, I guess, right?
Yeah.
A fate worse than death.
A fate worse than death.
We're introduced to Remus Lupin, who was
Great actor. What a great character, man.
Great actor as well. Who was an older friend of Harry's father. So he comes to learn a lot more about his parents from the eyes of Remus Lupin anyway. I guess we learn from the eyes of Snape in other parts of the series as well. So, but yeah, Harry comes to learn a bit more about Sirius and his family, and there's this Peter Pettigrew character that's in the background as well, and when he's coming to learn about all of these things. And yeah, the year kind of progresses, tensions rise. He meets Buckbeak. Hagrid is kind of
That's a great
care of
scene.
magical creatures.
He's the new teacher.
That's a great scene, man. When he's riding Buckbeak, and it's just like so carefree, like
It's quite an iconic image for Harry Potter as well.
When he's
flying over
with his hands up. That's such a great scene.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to what Hogwarts is to Harry Potter as a character as well. It's like I feel so free here, you know.
Yeah,
it shows it visually on the screen as well, very nicely, I think. But yeah, overall, kind of he comes to learn more about Pettigrew and Sirius Black and how that kind of happened, and he thinks Peter Pettigrew was killed by Sirius Black, right?
Yeah.
But actually, Peter Pettigrew you learn a bit more about an anime guy, if you like. Peter Pettigrew is actually an animagus, and he was Ron's rat Scabbers, who's been in the Weasley family for a little bit of time. And yeah, in the climax, you learn it's actually Peter Pettigrew who was betraying Harry's parents as opposed to Sirius Black. And then you find out Sirius Black was actually framed. And
it doesn't explicitly say it in the film, from what I remember, but in the book, it's quite explicit that it was Peter Pettigrew that actually killed all those people, not Black.
Yeah.
Sirius Black had come to confront Pettigrew about his thing.
Yeah.
And then Pettigrew, being the coward he was, just
chopped off his finger, exploded the street, and then disappeared.
Decided to start living life as a rat.
Yeah. So he's the mass murderer, basically.
Yeah. And you find out he's a follower of Lord Voldemort out of fear.
Fear.
And obviously the werewolf stuff.
Yeah. Lupin's a werewolf as well. You find that out.
Yeah.
And then you find out about how this is more the book, but I guess in their time in school, they all became like the Marauders. The Marauders map's introduced.
Oh. Yeah. Which we spoke about at the beginning. About that. This is what should be.
And you can see everyone, and they're all moving around in real time and everything.
Oh yeah, that's very cool.
But yeah, you find out that they all kind of learned and became anime guy to like in like a comforting way for their friend,
in solidarity with Remus.
In solidarity,
which is really nice
to describe it.
So lovely.
Yeah,
although being an anime guy is very cool,
and it's very hard. Apparently, it's very difficult magic to perform one. You're supposed to do it like register and all that stuff. So there's a certain amount of anime guy in the world.
But it was a very difficult time for Remus Lupin going through his cycles, and then that's why the Shrieking Shack was used as like a place where he could transform and stuff like that. Dumbledore actually let him come to school when he was not meant to. Again, this whole theme of prejudice comes up once more. But yeah, then there's the really cool scene when once Sirius is kind of redeemed a bit, Harry's at the lake, his very iconic Harry Potter scene, and he casts that Expecto Patronum on all the Dementors.
Oh yeah,
and all of that,
using the time turner again.
Yeah, the whole time turner narrative.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's ranked very highly on mine and Jabby's list, a bit more lower down on Jordan's list.
I'm surprised, Jordan, because it fleshes out the world quite a bit.
It does. It's kind of the start of the bigger thing. I think as a kid that was really a bit jolting to me. It was quite a abrupt change, and I don't know, I just always have that kind of memory of it being not as good as what had come before. So I don't know, I think I have just that prejudice against it, to be honest. And there's again a lot of plot holes in it that I don't think
I was going to say
make a lot of sense.
The time turner plot can be quite convoluted. I think one of the reasons why it's quite high on my list is because it starts introducing a darker narrative, which I'm always an advocate for in any kind of series or movie. So I like a darker, which is interesting because I don't necessarily like the bad characters, but I like when the good characters are in a bad situation.
Yeah.
So
I understand that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I really like it just for the I think it is the beginning of a different feeling.
Yeah.
It's the first one where you don't necessarily leave it feeling like we've won.
Oh, interesting, because Pettigrew escapes.
Yeah, because Pettigrew escapes and Sirius's name is not cleared.
Yeah.
He has to then escape. It's not like,
that's
it doesn't feel like we have won. Lupin has to leave and he's the best defense against the Dark Arts teacher we've ever had.
I guess it's the start of dark endings. Yeah. If you think about Goblet of Fire, we'll come on to talk about obviously, but the end of that is like, oh, this is real now. Voldemort's fully back.
It's interesting. It's similar to what you were saying before about how the first couple are like kind of wrapped up. I think it was you.
Yeah, I don't know if I said it, but someone said it.
We were talking about how the first couple are like their standalone stories
wrapped up.
It was Tyler actually that was talking about this, and this is the start of when it becomes one big story where they all start to merge into one because there's no like definitive ending. It's like what's going to happen next kind of thing.
I think it's a really good film. And Sirius is such an important part of Harry's life. Lupin is such an important part of Harry's life. And it's like a really nice connection to his parents.
Definitely, yeah.
That he's never really had before.
I think you learn a lot. You're
Yeah.
introduced to a lot of new characters, and you learn a lot about Harry and his parents and their past and all that kind of thing. So, and yeah, it's an interesting one with Scabbers and Pettigrew, because there's that classic plot hole everyone always talks about if Fred and George had the map, they would have seen this Peter Pettigrew sleeping around with Ron.
Yeah, all the time. 100%.
Which is, yeah.
Maybe they never looked at Ron.
But they just don't care. I think that's the justification, is they're doing it for their nefarious purposes and whatever pranks they want to play.
They're not looking for Ron, yeah. 100%.
They don't ever like pay attention to that dormitory or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of similar, on a similar vein, it always puzzled me that Hogwarts is the only wizarding school that we know of, at least in the UK, and there's only like 10 people in each year.
People might have been homeschooled.
That's not true.
People might have been homeschooled, but there's more than 10 people.
There's like 40, I think.
Yeah.
There's 10 people in each house.
Yeah.
So there's 40 people per year, which isn't a lot of wizards.
It's not, though.
No.
Which I think that's fair.
Yeah, okay.
And also, people might have been homeschooled. People might have not wanted to. I can imagine certain pure blood manics or
that's true.
Manics being like, I'm not sending my child there. I will teach them magic at home.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Or after they heard that Harry Potter tour was there causing so many problems.
I'm just not sending my child there.
It's not worth it.
Apparently, as a fun fact, apparently the director, because he's a new director, obviously he wanted to get to know the characters, especially the main three, Harry, Ron, and Hermione. So he asked the kids to kind of turn in an essay about their character. And this is what I was talking about earlier with Emma Watson. So in true Hermione fashion, she wrote like a long 16-page essay, gave it to him. Daniel Radcliffe just wrote like a one-page summary, and Rupert Grint never turned his in at all. So it's interesting.
True to character.
I suppose Rupert's excuse could have been that's what Ron would have done.
I think he did say that, actually.
Oh, really?
I think that was his excuse.
It's a good excuse.
Whether he actually believed that or whether it was just an excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get dropped, so...
Yeah, exactly. You can't drop him at that point, do you?
Imagine.
Also, another fun fact: the night bus was a real bus, and in the film, obviously, it appears to be flying past all the other cars and traffic. But in reality, the bus was moving at real speed, while the other vehicles were moving at a slower pace, and then the whole footage was then sped up.
Interesting.
So
that's really cool way
like
to do it.
The slow-moving cars were now at normal pace, but then
Yeah, that's
bus
really cool.
was now zooming really quickly. So
Movie
that's
magic.
quite cool.
Movie magic.
Movie magic. That's a great one. Yeah.
Movie magic.
So it's so creative, because I would never even think to if we're trying to create the scene, how do we do it in reality? So I think that's quite cool.
All right, George, any fun facts you want to share? Any information? Anything else anyone wants to say about the third one? If not, we'll press on.
Yeah, no, I think we covered it quite well.
Yeah, I think it's solid.
All right, we're getting to the meat of it now. The bulk, the top three, the podium, if you will.
So it's top three now.
Top three we're in now. So just to kind of recap the list, we got Deathly Hallows Part 2 at 8th, Deathly Hallows Part 1 at 7th.
Oh, no.
Then we got The Chamber of Secrets at 6th, and then joint 4th, 5th, we've got The Prisoner of Azkaban and The Philosopher's Stone.
I'm not mad at that at the moment.
I think it's alright.
I'm not mad at this.
I would
at all.
like Chamber of Secrets to be higher.
So the ones we have left are actually the middle of the pack, 4, 5, 6.
I'm not mad at this.
I'm very, very happy with this.
It's our personal ranking, so it's going to be averaged out to what we'd be happy with.
I'm not mad at this at all. Tell us what came third, Tyler.
Bronze medalist, The Goblet of Fire.
Oh no! That's
It got
a shame.
massively dragged down in the ranking because of what Jordan put it as.
That's a shame.
Jabby's put it as number 1, I put it as number 2, and Jordan has put it as number 7.
Goodness me, that's a shame. That's a real shame.
Number 7, Jordan.
It's the second worst Harry Potter film to you.
Yeah.
Just to summarise the movie quickly,
go
I
on.
guess. It's Harry's 4th year. It opens up with the Riddles gardener, I guess, and then he ends up going to he lives in a little outhouse. He ends up going to the little main house, and then he finds Voldemort there with Barty Crouch Jr. and Peter Pettigrew and his followers. And basically, it's just a scene that shows Voldemort's coming back and he's kind of regaining power again. And yeah, and then it then splits to Harry. Apparently, this is the first movie out of the first movie that's not Harry centric at the start. So the first few involve Harry in the first scene, effectively.
Yeah, that's
Lumos
true.
Maxima,
Although-
getting dropped at the doorstep.
This is technically Harry's dream. No?
It is
Yes,
technically
but the
Harry's-
scene itself doesn't
Doesn't
involve Harry
include
Potter.
Harry. Okay.
Yeah,
But technically, it's it is really happening though.
Yeah.
But I get,
It's like a vision.
yeah. So clearly setting the tone again, dark, dangerous times. Harry ends up going to school. It's a time of international magical cooperation. You got the Quidditch World Cup at the start, opening it up. You learn a bit more about portkeys. He ends up going to school when it's the Triwizard Tournament
Death
this year.
Eaters as well.
You learn about Death Eaters. And yeah, but the Barty Crouch is introduced as a character as well.
Who's Barty Crouch? He works for the Ministry.
Yeah, what's his job?
Barty.
Something to do with
I can't remember.
international.
I think it's like it would be the equivalent of being like a ambassador, maybe. I don't know. No, I'm waffling.
I think
Anyway, Barty Crouch works to like make sure the kind of international magic
International
order is
relations,
kind of
yeah.
in place, the International Confederacy of Wizards or whatever it is, whatever it might be. I think that's a Fantastic Beasts thing. But
He is the head of the Department of International Magical Cooperation. But I think previously to that, he was head of Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Or it was one of them.
that's
was
right.
Before the other.
He did that before because you see it in a memory later on.
Yes.
So following the Quidditch World Cup, it's the Triwizard Tournament. So two other schools, Beauxbatons Academy and Durmstrang, end up coming to Hogwarts to compete in this Triwizard Tournament, and they spend the year there. So effectively, the older students can put their name in and partake in gaining eternal glory for some reason.
These super dangerous tasks.
And a bunch of
life-risking
you could literally die, but that's okay.
In these really dangerous tasks. Long story short, you're introduced to Cedric Diggory as well. Victor Crumb, who's like a star seeker.
Fun fact about Cedric Diggory is actually Robert Pattinson, well, at least it was Robert Pattinson's favourite role he's ever played, more so than the Twilight.
Did it come out before Twilight?
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
It was his first ever movie
Have you
role.
seen Robert Pattinson in Twilight interviews and stuff? A lot of the time he's just like, oh god, this is just a bunch of rubbish. But obviously it's one of the most successful
It's
franchises.
his big thing, isn't it?
That's like Harrison Ford.
Yeah, Harrison
Star
Ford when
Wars.
he talks about Star Wars.
Bunch of rubbish.
Anyway, you're introduced to Fleur Delacour as well. So she's from Beauxbatons, Victor Crumb's from Durmstrang,
France and Bulgaria.
Yeah, that's right. And Cedric Diggory is from Hogwarts, and they end up being the kind of Hogwarts champions. And then, of course, because he's the main character, Harry Potter ends up somehow getting his name put into the Goblet of Fire, so he becomes one of the final champion in the various tasks. So you've got the first task, which is fighting a dragon, the second task, which is rescuing some friends from the Black Lake, and the third task, which is a maze. So they all compete in those tasks to varying degrees of success, and at the end of the maze, they find out the cup's at the middle of the maze. Cedric and Harry get there at the same time. They grab it together, and the cup's actually a portkey. Again, you learn what a portkey is earlier. It can transport you to a different place. Effectively, it's like a little teleportation device. They go to a graveyard, the graveyard of Tom Riddle Senior, if I'm not mistaken.
Tom Riddle Senior.
And you find out all along that Mad-Eye Moody, who was another character you're introduced to, who is the it's difficult to summarize.
Yeah.
Another character you're introduced to, who is actually the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher this year around, was actually posing as Barty Crouch Jr., who is the
David Tennant.
played by David Tennant, and is the son of Barty Crouch.
Barty Crouch has taken Polyjuice Potion to pose as Mad-Eye Moody.
That's right. Yeah. And then so effectively, Voldemort comes back. Peter Pettigrew comes out and reincarnates him using the blood of the enemy and the bone of the father, or whatever it is.
Flesh of the Servant as well.
That's it. Yeah, he cuts off his hand. And he gets his hand restored or whatever once Voldemort's back. They have a little duel. He kills Cedric Diggory. Kill the spare. Which is awful.
The spare.
So dismissive. Harry takes Cedric's body back. It's a very dark time. Voldemort's back. This is a real loss for the heroes. It's kind of Cedric's dead. Voldemort's back. Harry's crying on the field on the Quidditch pitch. that's the end.
They-
And then well, in the book as well, but it's not necessarily. Basically, Harry comes back knowing that there's someone at Hogwarts who shouldn't be here. Basically, who is the traitor? Because in the book it goes into a bit more detail, but it's like someone who put the portkey there. Basically, how was that portkey there? And then he gets taken away by Mad Eye. Who ends out, oh, Mad Eye, you're the.
That's how you find out.
It's Mad Eye, and then Dumbledore to the rescue comes, disarms him. Find the real Mad Eye, who's been locked in a trunk this whole time.
Awful.
Because he's needed to have him alive so that he can keep creating Polyjuice Potion.
Can't he use his hair? Kill him and just use his hair?
But your hair will die, isn't it?
I think.
I think it might need to be like a live. Like I feel like your hair might not stay
strand.
away. Your hair might not stay
Like
like
start to decompose or whatever.
after like a year.
Right.
And he doesn't know how long he's going to be there for. He might have planned to be there for like 2 years, 3 years. Like you just never know. So it's probably just safe, just in case.
Why is it ranked your first one, Jabby?
I almost like the opposite to you, Tyler. My favorite characters are always the villains. I love the villains. I love the villains so much. I really, really enjoy villains. So I think obviously you see him, like really see him, like he's as a entity, he's not just someone who's been spoken about before, like he's a real person.
He has the monologue and everything.
Yeah, and he's great. Like Ralph Fiennes just does an incredible job as Voldemort.
Absolutely.
And the way he's just his whole movements, the way he like gracefully almost like glides across the graveyard and stuff, I think is so cool.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, like his scene at the beginning, where he's like in that big armchair, but he's so small, but he's so powerful. It's almost like, I don't know, it's a bit of a, you'd expect someone to be a bit bigger who's that powerful, but he's so small. But the big armchair, I don't know, it just kind of it's a cool scene.
Yeah.
And then I think the tasks are really cool. It's a nice kind I don't want to call them filler, but it like,
They each play a part in fulfilling like the story.
exactly, and they keep the story running really nicely to keep you really engaged, because you're now like, oh, what's the next task going to be? What's he going to do next? Then you're even not even thinking about Voldemort, and then Voldemort then comes back into straight away and it's, oh wait, that kind of thing. So,
All along, everything, the reason Harry's being put into these dangerous situations and all of this has always been Voldemort in the background, or a servant of
In
Voldemort.
every movie.
Always.
Exactly.
It always ties back, which is really nice.
So,
I think there's a different, it's high on my list as well. I put it second, for different, similar, obviously. Like I said, I like a darker thing, and this is probably one of the darker endings of all of the, as well, I think, in terms of what you see on screen, it's spectacle and it's exciting.
Yeah.
The task is action packed. It works very well for an on-screen adaptation, I think. And I think when you ask a kind of casual Harry Potter fan what's their favorite, they're like, oh, the one with the task, what's that one? Like, that's really cool because there's so many. And I think it really works for an on-screen, which is why, in terms of, it might not necessarily be the best. In terms of, it's great. I think the plot's great, and I think the book's really good as well. But it might not necessarily be the best one of those. But in terms of then transferring it into a movie ranking, it's definitely up there as one of the higher ones.
I agree. I also think it's really cool seeing, you really see spells.
Yeah, it's
Because
proper magic.
Before it was kind of like, it's not like, well, you have combat spells in like the second one where Draco and Harry are dueling. And
You
stuff
learn about
like
the Unforgivables.
You learn about Unforgivables, but you see like they have colours and it's like they light up the screen. Like it's a lot more in this one, and that kind of sets the tone for how spells are for the rest of the film.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it again, as much as number 3 felt like a step from the first two, I feel like 4 just takes it up a notch.
There's a lot more combat and action.
Yeah,
And a lot darker. Like 3 is darker than 1 and 2, 100%, but 4 is just even more darker, and it's just they're growing.
Yeah.
They're becoming.
Yeah.
I mean, they're only 14. They're so young, but in our eyes, from the first book and stuff, they're growing up and 100%. So
Jordan, why so low?
Do you know what? I think this was kind of the point where I caught up with the books, and so I was kind of reading them as the books were coming out.
I see.
And number 4 for me has always been my least favorite book. I agree with you guys that it's a great movie in terms of the spectacle of, you have the Triwizard Tournament, and there's dragons and there's spells and there's all these amazing things that are happening. so it looks great on a screen. But for me, I think it's kind of what you were saying, Jabu, about the story is a lot of filler. So there's not a lot of substance to the story for me. Like the Triwizard Tournament is interesting, but it's not like it doesn't really contribute to the whole narrative.
The lore that you love.
The lore.
I think they spent a lot of time cooking with characters on this one and like developing what the maturity of the characters, I guess, if you like. I think a lot of the time between the tasks as well is spent.
Yeah.
Harry and Ron are starting to learn about girls
and arguing.
And arguing. They fall out. Yeah,
They fall out because Ron is jealous that Harry has put his name in without.
Well, he thinks he put his name
Harry
in.
put the name in without telling Ron.
You've got the Yule Ball as well.
Oh, yeah.
Some really funny moments, actually.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when they're McGonagall's teaching them how to dance, and Fred and George are kind of like, da-da-da, and
They're making fun of him.
yeah.
And it just works as like his older brothers.
Yeah.
Like they just would make fun
Yeah.
of him in that situation. So it's nice.
Yeah, I think it's a beautifully adapted movie, and yes, they miss out a lot of subplot, but it's done well. Apparently, Emma Watson, you know, there's like that magical transformation scene when she comes out for the Yule Ball in like a nice dress, and she's like, that's the first time Ron and Harry actually see her as like a woman, I guess.
Yeah.
Emma Watson. Did you say Emma Watson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said Emma Thompson.
Oh no,
Emma,
no.
Emma Watson.
I was like, well,
She comes out in a nice dress.
Professor
So you have the
Tuttle.
grim. Yeah, apparently on one of the takes she just like fell down the stairs when she
oh my god.
and tripped over her dress. I was like,
That would have been a nice bloopers.
Yeah.
At the end.
because it's like
Well,
this
at her
majestic moment.
At her dispense, I don't know if she would have.
I'm sure
that,
sure they laughed about it. But yeah, anyone want final thoughts on the fourth one? No, before we move to the top two.
Nah, I'm
Yeah,
good.
I'm glad that my ranking brought it down so much. It doesn't deserve to be in the top 2 for me. So
Oh my god.
I'm happy.
Gosh, it very marginally missed out in terms of final points. These are the final kind of scores are 17, 18 and 19 for the
Oh,
top
wow.
3. So they just won. So if anyone put the ranking any like a little bit higher, or the ranking would be entirely different in the top 3. So
Wow.
it's interesting.
Wow.
But yeah, that's, I guess we
Tell
move on.
us.
So we've got Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince. What's everyone? What do you guys think? What's taking the top spot? What's taking they're both very good movies in their own right. You learn a lot about the world and everything.
I think that Order of the Phoenix will win.
Interesting.
I think the next one will be Half-Blood Prince. That's my guess.
Jordan?
I agree. I think that the Half-Blood Prince will be second, and Order of the Phoenix will be first.
I can tell you that you are both incorrect.
Oh wow.
Interesting.
Order of the Phoenix is second and Half-Blood Prince is first. Order of the Phoenix, myself and Jabu rated 4th, and Jordan put on his top spot, number 1. Half-Blood Prince, I rated 1st, Jabu rated Jordan rated 2nd, and Jabu rated 5th. So 1, 2, 5.
You put it as first.
I love the Half-Blood Prince.
Very interesting.
It's a great movie.
If it's a book, as the book, it's my favorite book.
Okay.
But
I agree.
It's not my favorite film.
I think comedy is utilised a lot in Half. We'll come to talk about Half.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Order of the Phoenix first.
Cool.
Yeah, who wants to kind of summarise?
Yeah, I'll explain it. This is a solid film. So we leave off from the Goblet of Fire. Voldemort is back. Harry's seen him. He is told the wizarding world about him. He's told like Dumbledore, like the Minister of Magic, who's like the head of the government of the magical world. But the government don't really believe him, and they've been putting out propaganda that like Dumbledore is getting a bit old, he's losing his mind a bit, and only really Dumbledore has believed Harry that Voldemort's back. And so Dumbledore has created he's reformed an army, or like a resistance force that was fighting against Voldemort in the old days. They've all formed back together. They're made up of like a bunch of different people that Harry has met along his journey from books 1 to 4, and some that he hasn't met before. And yeah, so we kind of start. That's kind of where the film starts. We go back to Hogwarts because the government don't trust Dumbledore. They've sent a teacher, Professor Umbridge, to oversee things. and
Umbridge.
she has been given the power to
Basically run things
as
she sees fit.
undermine Dumbledore, basically. So there's a lot of power struggle through the whole film, which is quite cool. I think she's a good character because we all, I think, collectively hate her.
I was going to say, I think she's probably the most hated character in all of the
Way more
movies.
than Voldemort.
In a good way, though.
In a really good way.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Because it's like she's in school and she's giving him detentions for no reason. It's like you're just angry. And then she does things like smacking him and like inscribing on his hand so you can see his blood and stuff
She's
like
just
that.
a
She's just
horrible
not a nice.
It's like
She's
it's
enjoying torturing the kids. It's awful.
Exactly, and you're supposed to be the good person.
Yeah.
I think that's where it comes from. It's
Yeah.
like you're supposed to be good. You're supposed to be on our side, but you're got your own nefarious.
All the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers from before, they had their foibles and everything, but none of them were, with the exception of Barty Crouch and I guess Quirrell.
Yeah.
But
Even Barty Crouch helped him, prepare him. So.
yeah,
And Quirrell wasn't a bad guy. He was possessed. Kind
yeah.
of.
She's just outright like. At least even Voldemort kind of has a reason, I guess.
She just enjoys being horrible.
Yeah.
Or maybe she does have a reason. We just don't know. But
Yeah.
What?
Umbridge spin-off.
Umbridge spin-off.
Umbridge spin-off in the works.
Star Wars would have done it by now.
Most certainly a more sensible decision than the reboot they're doing.
100%.
absolutely.
Disney, if they owned Harry Potter by now, we would have an Umbridge seven
Umbridge
episode
spin-off.
season.
She becomes an anti-hero, and you're kind of rooting for her in number 5 when you have the context.
Yeah.
Like a Kenobi, but it's called Umbridge. Or Dolores.
Yeah, Dolores.
It's called, the series is called Dolores.
And it's like pink theme, pink back
Yeah,
theme, because she always wears
100%.
With cats and
with a
things.
cat on her shoulder.
Yeah.
And her
Yeah.
wand is kind of like in between her eyes. It's like,
Oh my gosh. Imelda Staunton just on
Yeah.
the front cover of Disney
Oh
Plus.
my gosh, man.
anyway, moving on. Yeah, she proves to be horrible. Probably the most horrible person Harry's encountered. And then during this, he kind of catches feelings for Cho Chang, who is like a love interest. And then during this time as well, because they're not happy with the way Umbridge is teaching, a bunch of students who think that she's not doing, they're not being taught properly, create like a group called Dumbledore's Army with the aim of like trying to teach defensive magic. And so they have like all these little meetings, teaching, and that kind of takes up a lot of the middle part of the movie.
Yeah.
Mixed with his relationship with Cho Chang, mixed with him getting in trouble with Umbridge. That's kind of like the basis of a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
And then also running concurrently to that as well, they know that Voldemort is after something. They're not sure what he's after. Like the Order of the Phoenix, the top dogs basically that Dumbledore has created, the resistance group, all know, but they're like, oh, Harry, you're too young to know. Boom, boom, boom.
And the Order of the Phoenix were like the team that took down Voldemort originally,
Exactly.
before Harry was born.
I mean, Harry was the one that took down Voldemort, but they were the original
They were
resistance
resistance
fighters.
force, yeah.
Yeah.
So they all know what Voldemort's after something. Harry doesn't know. He's trying to get them to tell him
How do they know that Voldemort's after something?
because, well, in the film, they just say it at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
In the film, they just say it. Like Sirius is like, Voldemort's after something. It's something you didn't have last time. And then Mrs. Weasley is like, yeah, stop talking.
He's just a boy.
He's just a boy. You might as well induct him into the Order, whatever. So when he's dreaming, he sees things from Voldemort's points of view, and he's like feeling more about Voldemort. So then he gets taught how to do a branch of magic, which kind of keeps Voldemort out. However, Snape teaches him and how to do this branch of magic because Snape is very good at it. However, Harry doesn't have a great relationship with Snape, and so Harry never really gets that good at mastering this type of magic. The magic is called occlumency. And so because he's not good at holding on to that type of magic or learning that type of magic, he feels Voldemort's thoughts a lot, and he experiences a lot of what Voldemort's feeling. Sometimes to the benefit of some people, because he saves someone's life who was attacked, which was Arthur Weasley.
Yeah.
But then ultimately it was to the detriment of Harry, because Voldemort worked out that he could.
They had a connection.
They had a connection, so he started giving Harry like false information. Harry thought Sirius was in trouble. He left school to go and try and save Sirius with a bunch of his friends who were part of Dumbledore's army. However, he gets there and he realizes Sirius is not here, and the thing that Voldemort wanted this whole time was a prophecy, which was made just before Harry was born.
Yeah.
About, and it was a prophecy about the relationship between Harry and Voldemort, and ultimately it basically says neither one can live while the other survives. There's a lot more to it, but that's ultimately they're destined to fight each other, and one is destined to beat the other.
The reason he wants to find the prophecy for himself is because he doesn't know the whole thing, does he?
Yeah, he heard part of it from someone else all those years ago.
Snape, I think, was
Yeah.
and then Snape realized that him telling Voldemort the prophecy meant that Voldemort was now going to go after Lily,
Yeah.
who Snape loves, and so that's when he kind of switched sides.
Yeah. That's all in the 6th book, though.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you are correct.
Okay.
I don't even think, if you've only watched the films, I don't think you'd actually know that.
Oh,
'Cause
really?
I don't think you would know that.
Oh, okay.
I think it's only in the books. Anyway, the fight ensues. Sirius gets killed. Boo-hoo. Everyone's sad. Voldemort comes back, has a great fight with Dumbledore, which is a great on-screen fight.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Really good visuals for that fight, actually. And then the Ministry of Magic come back to everything. They see that Voldemort's back. And yeah, and the film kind of finishes like that. Everyone's sad, Sirius is dead, boo-hoo. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are people's thoughts on this film?
Well, Jordan ranked it first out of every single one. So top of your tier list and fourth on both mine and Jabu's. So what do you think? Let's go to you first.
I remember liking this one because of the story, the book. In the book, this is kind of the first time you really start to find out more about what's really going on in the wizarding world. Dumbledore takes Harry to his office at the very end of the book and just sits him down and explains a bunch of stuff. And I remember really, really liking that.
You understand more about the law.
Exactly.
As we all know Jordan loves.
Yeah. It really builds the world.
But I don't remember if that actually happens in the movie.
It does, not in the same way.
So maybe my rankings are wrong. I think maybe number 6 should be my number 1.
In the film, it's like he has it's like a very short interaction, but it doesn't do the book justice.
Right.
The interaction in the book I think it's a really good interaction.
Yeah,
and he breaks down like everything that's happened over the book really well. But the book is just a bit like.
In the movie.
Yeah. In the movie, it's a bit.
Yeah.
There is a cool moment in Dumbledore's office though, when a couple of cool moments actually.
Wait, I don't know which one you're thinking about.
Am I right in thinking this is the one where they try and take him to Azkaban and then he does the whole Phoenix thing? And then Kingsley's like, Dumbledore's got style.
And the next time we see him is when he shows up at the Ministry to fight Voldemort.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool.
You shouldn't have
He's
come
like,
here tonight, Tom.
He's like, what does he say? He's like, I have no intention of going to Azkaban or something. When it's like the Minister of Magic is telling
and two
him,
like top level
and two
lawyers.
top level lawyers. And he's just like, I assure you, I have no intention. And then he just like teleports away with his forks. But the other moment I originally thought of was when Harry has that little, he kind of like does a little neck twinge, and then he's like, "Look at me" to Dumbledore, because Dumbledore's been ignoring him for the whole thing, which is like another kind of.
That's something I didn't. I didn't mention. Yeah, he's been ignoring him because he believes if Voldemort knows about when Voldemort finds out about the connection with him and Harry, he'll use Harry to get to Dumbledore, which is why Dumbledore didn't explain anything that the Order knew.
Dumbledore's starting to get a much better idea of what the actual kind of climax of the whole series ends up being. So Dumbledore's like a little bit a step ahead of like what the audience know. 5 steps ahead
of everyone.
Yeah.
So Dumbledore's been ahead of everyone from the very beginning.
Yeah. I know a lot of people don't like Dumbledore because of how he ended up being, and it's kind of like the whole lamb for slaughter kind of thing and all of that. But I guess it works a lot for his character, because I guess the whole thing with Grindelwald and everything, like, it is for the greater good, like the reason he was doing all of this. So
I think it makes so much sense. Like, I'd like to think if I was in his position, the best leaders, I think, and the people that you need in those times of crises are people like Dumbledore.
Are just not afraid to do what needs to be done.
You need to do what needs to be done.
I think a lot of people's justification from it comes from a place where it's like, in the first few, he's very like paternal to Harry, and he's like, I care about you so much and all of this, and then the later ones he seems quite cold, and it's kind of just like it's a stark change in his character.
I think that kind of reflects though what is going on in his mind.
Exactly what I was gonna
I think
say.
he does really love Harry as a son almost, but when he realizes what kind of has to be done,
So much more at stake.
he has to kind of turn that side of him off.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't want to have to feel those feelings.
It's not an easy thing for Dumbledore to be doing. Not at all. It's
Not
just
at all.
what he has to do.
And if you really understand Dumbledore, you know it's not easy. He really does care about Harry. He does. But
He
it's
does.
like, he'd be selfish if he put Harry above everyone else.
That the fight in the Ministry between Dumbledore and Voldemort is one of the better fights.
It's one of the
100%.
highlights of the whole movie series.
I
for me.
agree.
Just the visuals and the different types of spells they used, and it just looked amazing.
And Voldemort like spits out the fire snake and all of that.
Yeah.
Kind of, and it's the first time we really see Dumbledore using
Flexing.
powerful magic as
Yeah.
well, which is really cool.
Really
You actually
flexing.
start to see the power of Dumbledore, which we've all been told about, but we haven't actually seen until now.
But yeah, it's a dark time for Harry as well. Sirius has just died. Harry tries to use Crucio on
That's
Bellatrix. That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
You've got to mean it, Harry. She killed him.
Do you guys know Bellatrix was meant to be played by
That was my fun fact as well.
Helen McCrory,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
who obviously
Do you know
ends
what?
up
That would've
playing
been
Narcissa
her
Malfoy.
sister.
But
That would have been very interesting. It wouldn't have necessarily. I mean, obviously,
I think she would have done really well.
Helena
was-
Bonham Carter was amazing, but not, Helen McCrory would have actually put in a good showing, I think.
she was pregnant, so they had to not.
Yeah, I don't know. Discussing it again, I don't know. Thinking about Half-Blood Prince versus Order of the Phoenix, they're definitely my top two movies, but I don't know which one comes first and second.
Ooh, okay.
I might be changing my
The
mind.
book was clouding your judgment a bit. Interesting.
Although I really like the sixth book.
Six books. That's my favourite book. That is my favourite book.
Yeah.
That is my favourite
It's my
book,
favourite
hands
movie.
down.
When they were filming Goblet of Fire, which is number 4, Matthew Lewis, who plays Neville Longbottom, and Rupert Grint, who's obviously Ron Weasley, spilt some milkshake in Alan Rickman's car.
Wait, what? In? Why were they even in the car?
I don't know. I guess he was giving them a lift somewhere else. But like, he was taking them to McDonald's or something on one day on set. And for the whole of the 5th movie, he like banned them from being within 5 meters of his car. This stupid kid spilling milkshake in my new car.
I can see Alan Rickman doing that.
I can see Snape doing that as well.
5 meters as well. It's, not just like, it's like a restraining order.
And he's actually like really mad about
And
it.
he like cast like a spell on the car. So if you come within 5 meters, like something horrible
Yeah,
happens.
Jinx. gets to-
you get hexed or something.
Something terrible.
Yeah, I found that quite funny.
That's a good fact. That's a good bit of trivia.
Shall we move on to the number 1 top spot?
Let's do it.
Half-Blood Prince. So, just as a recap, I ranked this one first. My favourite of all the movies. Jordan ranked it second, and Jabu ranked it 5th.
Interesting.
But it still came out with 19 points on the top of the board there. So,
It's a great film. I said before, it is a great film, but it's not my favourite film.
5th though.
my favourite
That's
book.
quite low.
It's my favourite book.
Okay.
I think it could be because of a lot of stuff from the book is missed out.
Do you want to summarize the movie quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that. Okay, so where do we start? I guess we start at the beginning.
That is usually where we start.
That sounds like the start of like some big epics.
I know.
like the Lord of the Rings starts with that. Where do we start? Well, the beginning.
Gandalf saying it to Frodo
Yeah.
or something.
I think it actually is a line from
Is it?
from something
I
like
think
that.
I don't think I came up with that myself. I'm not that smart.
It's like you start where all good adventures do at the beginning. I think it's like
That's like-
it sounds like something
Maybe
Bilbo, would
Bilbo
say.
actually, yeah.
I think probably.
Bilbo saying it to
I think
Frodo.
it might be from The Hobbit, from the movies.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, because
Yeah.
you see Frodo at the beginning of The Hobbit, don't
At
you?
the very
And,
beginning,
and
yeah.
Bilbo's writing there and back again.
It might.
I think it might.
It might be something.
We start where all good stories do, my dear Frodo, at the beginning.
Which is
Go on.
Go on,
we're just coming off of Sirius's death. This is obviously a massive deal for Harry. This is like the only person he really considers family in the world. So he's in a really bad place. And in the movie, at the very beginning, Harry sees Dumbledore on a train platform, and he's like, "What? What's he doing here?" And then Dumbledore basically recruits him to come and convince an old colleague of his, Slughorn, to join the faculty at Hogwarts, because we find out later that Slughorn has something that Dumbledore wants, and he needs him to come to Hogwarts so that he can extract it from him.
Dumbledore is so conniving.
But
This is what people really don't like Dumbledore.
It's great though.
it's because he's doing what
Great
needs to be
stuff.
done.
It's the Slytherin in you.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Carry on, sorry.
So they've successfully recruited Slughorn into the faculty, but Slughorn's obviously not a defense against the dark arts.
Why does he take Harry to recruit Slughorn?
Because Slughorn likes to collect famous students. Like, he likes to put them in his little slug club. When Slughorn sees Harry Potter, he's going to be like, "Oh, I need to collect him," and he's going to encourage him to come to the school, and it works.
It worked.
At the start of the movie, Harry's about to chat up a pretty girl,
Pretty girl working in the coffee shop.
and then Dumbledore's like, "Oh, I feel like I stole a wondrous night from you."
And then Harry's just standing there, kind of awkward. It's just like, okay, Professor.
Because he was like he was dropping some riz.
And do you remember he was like, he ate like a mint, like he ate some mint.
He was ready. He was like
smelling his own breath. Yeah, he was ready for that.
and then Dumbledore just appears on the platform.
He was like low-key, he was actually really upset Dumbledore was there.
100%.
Yeah. He was like,
And then he has to then go and do
apparition.
He apparated, feeling sick. Where he could have just been chatting to the girl, like
into this dodgy tower.
I just don't want to be here. It's night time. We're going into some place and it's all dark and like.
And then Dumbledore tells me to take up my wand, like just allow it.
Some dilapidated home.
Literally last year I got expelled for using magic outside of Hogwarts, and now you want me to take
Yeah, but when you're with Dumbledore, it's never
Anything goes.
Anything goes.
Slughorn obviously doesn't want to be the defense against the dark arts teacher, so now Snape shifts into that role for the first time, which apparently is what he's always wanted.
Which he has.
And Slughorn becomes the potions master. And then Harry basically doesn't get a chance to buy his potions book. He has to borrow one from the cupboard in the potions lab. Both him and Ron need one, and there's two left. One that's really, really old and crappy, and one that's like brand new. And they start fighting over the new one. Ron gets it, and Harry gets this old one. Turns out that this old one was actually used to belong to the Half-Blood Prince.
Ooh, I wonder who that is.
Who was some potions legend. He came up,
Absolute legend.
there was
mate.
like crossed out the books and like put his own notes in it and everything. Like, he knew what he was doing, this guy.
Potions legend.
Absolute legend in the school.
And Harry starts to use his notes, and his potions are just
He's heralded. It's like when you hear the name Half-Blood, everyone's like, what?
Falls to their knees.
It's like a myth. Like,
Is that the prince?
the prince.
yeah, he's like made notes in the book to like improve the potions basically. And Harry starts to use the notes, and he just becomes like as good as the Half-Blood Prince, like better than even Hermione, who's like makes comments at him like, "Oh, you're not doing it right," and then his potion turns out 10 times better than hers.
Crush it, don't cut it.
What the basic underlying main plot of this movie is that Dumbledore, who, spoiler, now knows he's going to die very soon, has realized that he needs to start bestowing some knowledge upon Harry. So like basically this is what you need to do in order to defeat Voldemort, basically. Dumbledore was messing around in the previous summer. He put on a ring that he shouldn't have. That turned out to be a Horcrux for Voldemort.
What's that?
A Horcrux is, we find out in this movie, is basically a way for someone to live forever. They basically split their soul and put it into different items, which we find out Voldemort has done through, you have to kill someone, and that the act of killing rips your soul apart, and then you do some other dark magic to bestow that part of your soul into an inanimate object, which
Only inanimate.
I think so. I don't think you can put it.
Nagini,
Oh, you can put it in
Harry, and Nagini.
Okay, so it's just basically storing your
it's
soul.
inadvised, so Voldemort says it. Well, Dumbledore says it's inadvised to do it into a living creature in number 6. But yeah, why are you laughing?
It's just the way you said it. It's ill-advised.
It is. That's what Dumbledore says.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
It's because you're speaking like you're a professor or
I'm
something.
sorry.
It's ill-advised to do
Sorry,
that,
sorry,
Harry.
guys. I'm not trying to be that guy. Sorry.
No, it's funny because it's just like it's like it like it's a real thing. And that's
It
why
is.
Like, is it not?
It
It
exists.
is. I have one.
Oh,
I killed
Oh.
someone yesterday.
oh.
Yesterday.
I mean, is that a declaration of murder on the?
Come get me. I've got a Horcrux. See what you can do.
See what you can do.
See what you can do.
You'll be next. You'll be next, Mudblood. You'll be next, Mudblood.
Enemies of the air, beware.
He just looks at Hermione.
You'll be next month. He's basically outright racist.
He's just blatantly racist,
in the whole-
and no one does anything
He's
about
12.
And he does it in front of teachers as well. They don't say anything.
They don't say. They don't. Oh, we have a
Because they
zero
all kind of
tolerance
deep down.
policy.
They all deep down believe it as well.
It's true.
it. They were like, yeah, it'll be the Mudbloods next. Yeah.
They all say in the
McGonagall-
staff room.
McGonagall like nudges Snape, and she's like, "Yeah."
I told you, didn't I?
That's what I said yesterday.
Did you tell him that?
Flitwick's like, oh. Flitwick's like the most. Yeah, oh, those bloody Mudbloods.
Oh my gosh.
If you ever hear, like, if any of the staff room tapes at Hogwarts ever get leaked, like, it's just it's a wrap.
It's locker room talk.
They all lose their teaching licenses.
So Dumbledore is kind of educating Harry on the life of Voldemort, what a Horcrux is, what he needs to do to basically defeat Voldemort. And the reason he's brought Slughorn to the castle is because Slughorn basically was the one who inadvertently told Tom Riddle how to create a Horcrux. And he wants to extract that memory from Slughorn's head and put it into a pensieve so that he and Harry can look at it and kind of get to grips with what Voldemort's actually done. So that's like the main plot of the movie, which obviously eventually happens. But in the background, there's this whole thing between Hermione and Ron where Ron's a little bit salty at Hermione because there's still like an underlying relationship with Victor Crumb, and Ron's a bit jealous. And so Ron ends up getting in a relationship with Lavender Brown, who is just this awful, clingy girlfriend.
I think she's really well acted, though.
Very well. And I think it introduces a nice kind of comedic part of the film as well.
Yeah.
They love the word snogging in that film. The word snog in that film, I feel like it's used so much.
I was going to say, this movie utilizes a lot of comedy.
Yeah, it does.
A lot of, like, the whole where they're fighting for the book.
Yeah.
And that's actually quite a funny moment, because when Ron gets, he like smiles at him or whatever.
When Ron gets the love potion.
And then have we spoken about the liquid luck bit yet? Or because that's a really funny sequence with Harry as well.
Yeah.
So that's when Harry actually ends up getting the memory out of Slughorn, because Slughorn's obviously ashamed of that part of his past, and so he doesn't want to give away the memory. But Harry, using his new potions prowess, has won this Felix Felicis potion, which is essentially a luck potion. When you drink it, everything just starts going right for you.
Lucky.
And he takes it and then goes after Slughorn and basically eventually convinces Slughorn to give him the memory. But that is
It's so funny.
It's a really funny
That sequence.
When he's like, he finds him in the greenhouses and Slughorn's doing something he shouldn't be doing. He's stealing from like Professor Sprout's stores for some rare potion ingredient or something. And then he's like, "Oh, you scared me!" And then Harry starts wandering out the building, and Slughorn's like, "I can't let you go out there when you're in. It's
by
like
all
nearly
means,
night."
come along,
He's like,
sir.
"By all means, come along." He's like, "Harry." He's like, "Sir." And then they go down. Aragog's passed away, and the whole eulogy for Aragog's quite funny.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, "Not to mention the pincers," and all of that kind of thing. And he's like, "Farewell, Aragog. Your body will decay."
But it's the it's cool as well how like the potion actually did work as well, because it all of that ended up meaning that Slughorn was where he needed to be, so Harry could get the memory basically.
Because Harry even says at some point, like, Slughorn's like, "What makes you say that?" And Harry's like, "I actually have no idea." So the potion's kind of just guiding him to do whatever's right.
Is it like alcohol basically?
I guess
Kinda.
No, what, does alcohol make you make good decisions?
It makes me lucky sometimes.
Oh my god.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
So much stuff happens in this movie. Like, there's the whole Lavender and Ron. There's Harry and Ginny. That becomes a thing.
Oh yeah.
Ron joins the Quidditch team. Does that happen in this movie?
Yeah, it does.
So much stuff.
And Harry pretends he gives Ron the liquid luck potion.
And then that makes
Ron's
Ron play
first game.
really well in his first game. Yeah.
Yeah, and Hermione's like fuming about it. And then Harry's like, didn't actually give it to him.
Still got the seal on the Bible. But then how does it kind of like? How does it all kind of get concluded with the Horcruxes and stuff?
So Dumbledore basically tells Harry everything. They go. He takes Harry with him because he can't do this alone.
To do what?
So he takes Harry with him to go and find a Horcrux. He knows where one is. He goes to find it and destroy it. and they go through this whole trial with Inferi and everything. They get to the end.
What's that?
Inferi are like the animated dead bodies, basically, like zombies, and Voldemort's enchanted them to protect his Horcrux, basically. So they get to the end, and there's a basin of crazy potion that they have to drink
Crazy potion.
to like get to the Horcrux. They get the Horcrux. They go back. So they get back to the astronomy tower. Turns out Draco Malfoy has found a way to get Death Eaters in through vanishing cabinets, which is a whole thing. And then Harry's hiding underneath while Draco's at there, and then Draco's basically trying to kill Dumbledore because Voldemort has tasked him with killing off Dumbledore, which he's been trying to do all year.
And Harry's kind of been guessing it through. He's been guessing something's been happening with Draco. But
There's
he's
a
not
number
sure.
of different things that are happening that suggest Draco's trying to do something a bit
off time.
Like Katie Bells gets
Katie
like,
Bell, Ron gets poisoned.
Yeah.
And they see that kind of thing that's happening at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
With the vanishing when they go to Borgin and
Burks, yeah.
But yeah, so what happens when they're at the top of the astronomy tower?
Draco's basically saying, I really have to kill you, otherwise Voldemort's going to kill me. And basically Dumbledore's come up with this whole plan where basically Snape kills him and Draco doesn't. So Snape shows up at the last moment. Avada Kedavra is Dumbledore. Dumbledore falls off the astronomy tower.
In slow-mo.
And the Death Eaters make their escape. Harry runs after them because he's fuming at Snape, because Snape's supposed to be a good guy, but he killed Dumbledore, and so he's really, really angry. As he's chasing them, he uses this spell on Snape, which Snape easily deflects. Turns out this is a spell that he's read in the book from the Half-Blood Prince. And this is how we find out that Snape is or was the Half-Blood Prince.
Roll credits.
Roll credits.
A big deal. But yeah, the Death Eaters escape with Draco. We have a funeral for Dumbledore.
And it's worth noting as well that the Horcrux that they got in the lake was a fake, and it had a note inside saying like, I've taken the real one and intend to destroy it, signed RAB. We find out RAB is actually Sirius Black's brother, who was a defected Death Eater,
basically.
And then that's like a whole thing in the next film, basically.
Which was ranked last, and we spoke about at the start of the podcast.
Basically, yeah. But we didn't even talk about that part of the film at all.
So yeah, and then the film ends basically with them making a pact to go and find these Horcruxes together, and they're going to beat Voldemort as a team and all of that, and then roll credits.
Yeah, definitely number one ranking for me. It's just
Really
it's
good
got
film.
everything you need.
It's a good film. It is I don't know if I should have put it first, but it is a good film.
Things are very dark. There's comedies used, but comedy is also used in the right places for that light-hearted kind of relief. You learn a lot about the whole kind of plot of the whole series of Harry Potter. There's some really cool on-screen moments. You have like the fight between Draco and Harry. We didn't talk about this, but the fight between Draco and Harry in the bathroom as well.
Oh yeah, this
Harry
is where
uses
Sectum
Harry
Sempra.
first uses Sectum Sempra, which he's read in the book. It just says Sectum Sempra is like used against enemies or whatever.
And Snape actually shows up to help out Draco,
And he starts doing incantations to heal him.
You're thinking about in the book, not in the film. But in the film, in the book, when he sees Draco, he realizes straight away. So he says, "Bring me all your school books." So then Harry has to go, collects all his school books, but he like
trades it with Ron.
Ron's the Half-Blood Prince book. He trades it with Ron's like potions book. But then in the book it says Ronald Weasley or Ronald like
Weaslab or whatever.
Yeah, based from like
Waslib.
from a mishap that happened at the beginning of the book, and then when he sees it, he's like, "Oh, so you Ronald Weaslab?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's my nickname." And then he's like, "Oh, I think you're lying." So he's like a month's worth of detention.
Is that in the 6th book?
That's in the book, yeah. But that fight between them though is really good. Draco and Harry is so good.
It's
quite emotional. You can see Draco's under a lot of pressure this year.
He's crying. He's crying in the sink before Harry comes. Like, he just does not want to be there doing what he's doing. Like, it's where you really start to see where Draco's been coming from this whole time. He's grown up in a horrible place. He's been made to do things he doesn't want to do, and this is kind of all coalesced into this big. It started to build, and the responsibilities of really dark deeds have been put onto him, and it's like it's just not. He's 16. Like, it's just not right.
It's worth noting as well, the reason it actually ties in quite nicely from the last one we spoke about. The Death Eaters that were at the end that were tasked to go and get the that ended up fighting like Harry and his friends at the end of the 5th one. Lucius Malfoy, Draco's father, was like heading that group. Voldemort was like, "Oh, you failed," and because they ended up going to Azkaban, he tasked Draco because he wanted him to kill Dumbledore. But he expected Draco to fail, and then he wanted to then kill Draco for his failure as part of like
punishment for Lucius.
Basically, that was the whole plan, which is quite sick from Voldemort's perspective.
Awful.
But
that's it, though.
Great villain,
exactly. But yeah, no, this one it's got romance, it's got humour, it's got its dark moments when it needs to be serious. It's serious. Some really cool on-screen moments. Bellatrix is like, when Bellatrix is like smashing up on the castle.
Oh, yeah, so good.
It's so cool. And then like Hagrid's hut on fire.
Yeah,
I think the romance in this movie is what really sets it aside from all of the other ones, and I think it's why a lot of people like this book / movie the most. It's because it has that other element that a lot of people get a lot out of. And the other movies and books don't really have that at all.
4 and 5, I'd say, have quite a strong romantic element. You've got the Yule Ball, and like they're starting to be like, oh, you have to ask
little bit
people to it and stuff.
It's like a stepping stone. I'd say 4 definitely steps up to into 5, and then 5 is definitely a bit. I feel like 5 to 6 feels like the biggest step, though.
Yeah, like Harry and Cho's relationship's a big deal in number 5.
Fair enough.
That is true. It's a big part of it. And then who's the Dragon Balls? The Dragon Balls guy who ate the Dragon Balls. What's his name?
Oh gosh.
Who fancies Hermione?
Oh, you're talking about Cormac McLaggen.
Cormac.
But I'm thinking about the other guy. But it begins with a B. Belby or something.
Who's eating all the ice cream?
Who's eating all the ice cream at the same. And then throwing up on Voldemort on Snape's shoes. And Snape's just like,
Dragon Balls.
Some really, really funny moments, man.
Funny. And then Luna showing up with the
Luna's introduced in number 5. We didn't even talk about Luna. She's such a great character.
Didn't you say she's one of your favourites?
Yeah, she's definitely up there for me. She's definitely up there. One of my favourites. I think she's kind of fearlessly herself. And
which I love. And I think that kind of sticks out for a lot of Harry Potter fans. They really value that.
Quick trivia: Lavender Brown, over 7,000 people auditioned to play her.
Wow.
And they had like the final shortlist spent like 2 hours each with Rupert Grint doing like screen tests and stuff like that.
Wow.
I think it really shows though. Like
it definitely does,
the dynamic that they're trying to pull off really comes across, I think. But yeah, I guess we can kind of call it there. That's it. The mighty tier list of Harry Potter is complete. We had Deathly Hallows, both part 1 and 2 at the bottom, then going up to Chamber of Secrets, and then Prisoner of Azkaban and Philosopher's Stone drew in joint 4th place.
I'm still sad that Chamber of Secrets was so low. I really like
Chamber of Secrets could have been a bit higher.
Yeah, in hindsight, when we were talking about it, I was like, yeah, it's actually really good. But they all are in their own way.
That's true.
Most of them.
And then the podium, Goblet of Fire in 3rd, Order of the Phoenix in 2nd, and Half-Blood Prince.
I'm not mad
takes
at that.
the crown.
I'm not mad at that podium.
I'll take it. Yeah,
we should do this again. I had a good time recording this one. We should do it again in a year's time and see how our things. Do you know what? I think even if we did this, even if we did this next week, the list would look entirely
100%.
different. Like I think that's the thing with these. You can watch them again and again, and they're just.
I don't think my bottom 2 will change, but I think everything else changes.
Yeah,
I agree.
You get
100%.
I get what I'm saying. Yeah.
But no, this was actually a lot of fun.
I had a good time as well.
It's a nice.
I completely agree. We should do this as other things as well.
I was going to say it's a
Not just
nice
Harry Potter.
nice structure for good conversation and stuff.
Let's look to do it for some other series we like then.
And anyone listening, if you want to see us chat about anything, give us a shout on what you'd
drop
like
a
to hear.
recommendation or get in touch.
Because do it for the Lord of the Rings. That'll be interesting.
Ooh.
We've got to include the Hobbit movies in
No, we'll do it separately.
Bully Maguire trilogy.
Oh.
I'm putting out Spider-Man 3, the masterpiece it is. Anyway,
we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.